me some Gloria Gaynor.
Good morning, St. Louis with Alex and T-Bone on BK. This team's so hot it deserved an open for today. The Blues win over the weekend 5-4 in overtime against the Minnesota Wild. They've done everything we asked of them, Alex. All we said was, can you please give yourself a chance to have a must-win game against the Vegas Golden Knights? Man, there's meaning. There's real, tangible meaning behind this game. If you win it, you allow yourself an opportunity to really believe in this team. Everybody should be jumping on the Blues bandwagon after tonight if they are able to get the job done against the Vegas Golden Knights. And if you lose, you're probably done for the season. And that's all you can really ask for, man. As a Blues fan, coming into the year, Doug Armstrong set the expectations properly. He said, we want to be right around that wild card spot in the Western Conference. If we could be there, that's probably a successful season for us, given where we're at in our retool. And guess what, man? That's where they're at. They've put themselves in position, given what they've done against Boston, LA, Minnesota, not once, but twice. In Anaheim, yeah, they had that weird game against Colorado. Played pretty well, though, man. We said that they have one mulligan. They got it, and now you gave yourself an opportunity. How you feeling today, Alex?
I'm feeling awesome. It's finally nice to know that there's a game that matters so much tonight for this Blues team. And, man, looking at that schedule, specifically after they laid 3 eggs against the Islanders, the Devils, and the Rangers, you had the trade deadline around that window. And I know we heard everybody talking about how, man, the trade deadline seemed to have had an impact on the guys. And you're thinking, yeah, okay, what an excuse. Everybody goes through this. But I didn't think it actually meant that, because post-trade deadline, when they got shut out by the Rangers, something clicked. We can call this the Zach Dean effect. We can call this the stand pat effect at the trade deadline. But to go on a run like the Blues did, where it was Boston, LA, Minnesota, and I got to be honest, those 3 seem like they're tough games. The tougher games were Anaheim, Ottawa, and Minnesota, and the Blues found ways to win. Did it look ugly at times? Yeah, that Anaheim Ducks game, they didn't start off well, nor did they start off well against the Ottawa Senators. Did you let Minnesota back into the game? Absolutely. But as they always say, it don't matter how you get there as long as you get there. And they are finding ways to win hockey games. With all that being said, it comes down to, I feel like Herb Brooks right now, one game. They may win 9 out of 10, 99 out of 100. Not this one. You've got to win this game tonight against the Vegas Golden Knights, and it's a perfect time to be taking on a Vegas.
Hell yeah, dude. They have a goalie problem right now.
Yeah, they do. The guy came back to the bench, and he's like, man, I don't feel good right now. I'm not 100%. They don't have Alex Pietrangelo. They don't have Mark Stone. They still don't have Tomas Hertl. This is a team, albeit they did just win back-to-back games, but they're 500 hockey right now.
Seattle and Columbus. You want me to go ahead and sound the alarm bells for them meetings?
So calm down.
And they're 500 on the road this season. If there was ever a game that was in your favor, it's this one tonight against the Blues. You cannot let it slip, though. If you let this one slip, just like I think Minnesota was Saturday, you will be a defeated group if you lose this game. And we'll talk about this in a minute, because I know it seems like, well, Alex, there's still a lot of games to be played. They can get in. Man, it is going to be even more of an uphill battle, as it already is for this Blues team.
It's the game that allows the Blues to control their destiny, as we talked about on Friday, to where if you win this one, okay, now it's a 4-point swing that went in your favor. Now you feel like the team that can control the destiny and try and get into the playoffs. You lose, you need help along the way. And that is not the road that you want to be on if you're in the St. Louis Blues. You've done all this battling. You finally crept through this ugly middle that was the Western Conference, and you've come out on top over Minnesota, over Seattle, over Calgary. All these teams that were stuck in that muddy middle at one point where you were looking way up at them, and we were going, Vegas, Vegas,
Sphere.
And now you're up there. So now it's a chance for an actual playoff-style game, and credit to the Blues. I didn't think they had this in them. I wrote them off after the deadline, and Army's like, we're not having fun. We can't trade anybody. Nobody wants any of our players. I thought they were done. And I thought them calling up Dean signaled that they thought they were done.
They did signal that they were done when they called up Dean.
The fact that they've got a game that they can control their destiny with a big point swing tonight, it's fun, but they got to come out and they got to show up. And the fact that they've done that and haven't laid an egg really since makes me feel pretty confident in this group coming into tonight.
As they say in Shawshank Redemption, you crawled through a river of you-know-what. You came out the other side. I don't know that they came out clean, but they're coming out nonetheless.
They are covered in feces.
And they have found a way to believe. Like, that's part of what's going on right now is they have the song. I Will Survive.
What a song.
And it makes a lot of sense for this team and where they've been, who they are, what they're all about. This is not a very good hockey club. Let's be totally candid about it. This is not a team that you went into the season really believing in that they could do anything meaningful. But Jordan Binnington has been excellent for the most part. Joel Hofer, got to give that guy his credit. He's been great for the vast majority of the season. The defensive core has been better than anticipated. They added Matt Kessel, who's been pretty solid for them. And you've had just enough contributions from your forward group. You had Jake Neighbors come in, and once he was added to the power play, it was like, okay, this actually works a little bit for us. You've had Sonny added to the second unit. That helped them a little bit, able to at least, overcome some of their struggles at 5-on-5. And maybe most importantly, at the exact right time, Jordan Kyrou has found his game. I don't know if it's going to sustain, man, because we've seen this before. Talk about a guy that has been basically the story of the Blues season, up and down, up and down, up and down. Jordan Kyrou's looked excellent the last 2 games. T-Bone, we had that honest conversation on, what was that, Thursday, I guess it would have been? Well, since then, he's played 2 of his best games of the regular season. And I'm talking like 200-foot game. Like, he's been good defensively. He's been tough on pucks. He's playing really well right now on that second line with Pavel Buchnevich centering him. I think Jake Neighbors has looked pretty good with Robert Thomas. I don't know about the left wing on that line, but we'll figure that out as we go along here. They've got just enough to potentially be able to be interesting down the stretch. We all said, get yourself to the Vegas game and then see what happens. Alex, the see what happens part is where it gets really interesting to me. We know what happens if you win. If you win, you're right in this thing, and now it's about just taking care of your own business. You don't technically control your own destiny because you'll still be a couple of points behind, but you're in it. If they lose, I heard earlier today on the morning show they were talking about it, and maybe you could have some kind of a path for the playoffs. Feels unlikely, but maybe. Alex, you were doing some of the math earlier today. What is at stake tonight? Lay it out for us. What is really at stake with the Blues taking on Vegas?
So look, there's 4 points separating these two teams right now, and Vegas has a game in hand on you. Let's do a little experiment together. Let's play a game, and this will paint the picture better for you. I'm going to give you the matchup for Vegas, and you tell me if you think it's a win or a loss. Keep in mind, Vegas is about 500 on the road, and they're really good at home this season. They're on the road against Nashville.
Loss.
Yeah, loss. They're on the road against Winnipeg.
Loss.
BK and I said 50-50, but we'll give it the loss. We'll be the super optimistic for the Blues. On the road against Minnesota.
No, wait, and that team sucks.
At home against Vancouver.
Loss.
They're at home. I'm giving them the win. Arizona on the road.
Win.
On the road against Vancouver.
Loss.
On the road against Edmonton.
Loss.
Home against Minnesota.
Win.
Home against Colorado.
50-50.
Yeah. I'll say win because it's home.
Loss, but
home against Chicago.
Win.
Home against Anaheim.
Win.
That is a 7-4 record. That is 14 points. That puts them at 97. Take tonight's game out of it. That gives you a total of 10 games the rest of the way. You've got to pick up 18 points just to tie them in the final 10 games. That's 9-1.
Yep. And winning all of those.
You have one mulligan against Nashville, Edmonton,
and that's tying them,
Carolina,
by the way, which wouldn't get you in. You have to go undefeated the rest of the way if this is like, and this is just a realistic path. This isn't even Vegas being great.
Yeah.
You basically are in a spot where if you lose tonight, you have to win out to get into the playoffs.
Yeah, you're talking about if you don't win, you're talking about 9-1 or 10-0, while the other team probably close to 500. That puts you in a position. You can't just tie this team because this team is 2 games up on you in the tiebreaker and regulation wins. You win this one. They've got a game in hand, but you're 2 points behind them. They have to go 7-4, while you have an opportunity to go on a run where you can lose 2 games. This is everything for the Blues. Sure, mathematically, analytically, you could still catch them. But if you lose this game in regulation and don't pick up 2 points, man, you are talking about the uppest of the uphill battles.
We've talked about it a couple of times. I mentioned this during the Mizzou football season where, like, there were just pass-fail tests for them. It was, I don't care about style points, just win the game, right? When they played against South Carolina this year, they did win with style points, but they could have won that game 7-3, and I would have said, cool, you got it done. Down the stretch, you played against Florida at home. It wasn't pretty, but you found a way to get it done with that 4th and whatever, 13 or that they were able to complete. That's where we're at right now with the Blues season. It is a true pass-fail test. They were not perfect by any stretch of the imagination against Minnesota over the weekend, but you got your 2 points. I would have rather them win that in regulations. That way you put a little more distance between yourself and Minnesota, but whatever. You found a way to get the 2 points. That's what matters most right now. Vegas is the team you're catching. You have to win this one in regulation. Yep. You got to get this one in regulation, find a way to come away with a win. You're at home. You had a couple of days here. Vegas is coming on the road. They're not at anything close to full strength right now, missing their number one defenseman, their captain, missing potentially their number one goalie. Like, you have a real chance to capitalize here. And Alex, if you win this game, coming up after it, you've got Calgary, San Jose, Anaheim, Chicago, Seattle. You've got some teams that you will have a real opportunity to make some hay against, and they have made a lineup change. The Blues have. Find this to be a little interesting. Want to get your thoughts on it, Alex. The Blues going into tonight have decided that they're going to go with 11-7, according to Jeremy Rutherford.
Oh, so you are taking a page out of Berube's book.
And Sonny as your fourth line, quote unquote. They'll double shift somewhere there. Toropchenko was the one that was doing the line rushes with the third line tonight. They have decided to take out the young players. I actually don't mind it. This is the kind of game where, man, the intensity gets ramped up a little bit. And for Zach Dean and Bolduc, I like those players. I think they've done pretty good, especially Bolduc. I think he's done a pretty good job for the most part, but we've talked about it. There have been some mistakes. You don't want him to make a mistake tonight that costs you the game, both for him and for your team. So I don't mind them going this direction. How do you feel about going 11-7 and pulling Bolduc out of the lineup?
I see what they're doing. Like, look, you're not putting Zach Dean in the lineup in this game. Frankly, I'm surprised they haven't just sent Dean back down. You've already used the call up, and I know if you send him down, then you're not going to be able to call him back up because you only have one more move. But you played him one game, and that was it. I understand the Bolduc thing. I would say they're probably viewing this as, look, we're only playing him 8-9 minutes a night. We can't afford to play him in this game. You don't want to break his confidence, and frankly, this is a must-win game for your team. You need to give yourself the best position possible. I expect Bolduc to go back in on Thursday when they take on the Calgary Flames. I'm fine with it. I'm not going to be upset about it. But on the flip side of it, I also look at this as you're only playing him 5, 6, 7 minutes a night. Basically, you're playing him in the first period, and that's about it. So what's the difference? I don't really think it makes a difference to have 7 defensemen in this one. I would much rather the player, even if he's on the bench, seeing what it takes to win in this type of atmosphere. But look, you can't have any mistakes take place in this game tonight, and if you do, you don't want to crush a guy like Zach Bolduc. So I'm fine with it. Basically, Perunovic is the 7th defenseman, it'd be Scandella is the 7th defenseman. So Perunovic is your power play guy. Scandella is going to be playing late in the game for you, and that's probably what Bannister's viewing.
I kind of like it, actually.
I do too.
I don't mind them going in this direction at all. Bolduc has there's been certain moments in which it looks like he's still a young player. There's nothing wrong with that. That's perfectly understandable. He only took 7 shifts in the game against Minnesota anyways. They basically went 11-6 in that game. If you're going to treat Bolduc that way, just go ahead and go with the 11-7. Make it official. Give yourself the opportunity to have that extra defenseman for that roster spot. They clearly don't trust Bolduc 100% in these games that are playoff atmospheres right now anyway. So it's risky. You're going to have to double shift some guys, and it seems like the player that was doing it a decent amount in the last game was Jordan Kyrou. Kind of liked it, though. He had a good game. Go ahead and get him that extra ice time. Reward him for his quote-unquote good behavior, so to speak. I like it. Blues have a chance tonight to put themselves in position to really make a playoff push down the stretch with a win against the Vegas Golden Knights. You'll hear full coverage for that one right here all day long on 101 ESPN with Alex and T-Bone on BK. Alex will have your pregame coverage for Blues versus Golden Knights tonight at 6 o'clock. Again, that's right here on your home of the Blues, 101 ESPN.
And we'll have the play-by-play man, Vegas, for the Vegas Golden Knights. Dave Goucher is going to join us at 1:30 today to do a little game preview of this one.
Love it. So that's coming up at 1:30.
Open up with our song.
Absolutely. To lay down and die, oh no, not I.
Apparently, this is the Blues song.
I like
love
it.
to see it.
I'm getting Grant to do some investigative reporting today in the Blues locker room to find out who started this.
So I was listening to the Blues post game after the Boston Bruins game, and I thought I heard this song, but I couldn't be no, it was actually after LA. It was after the LA game. I thought I heard the song in the Binner post-game press conference. I wasn't 100% positive about it, but now I think we've confirmed it. I think that this is the song that they're going with down the stretch.
2019 Gloria, 2024 Gloria Gaynor. Stanley Cup, here we come.
Fired the coach midway through both seasons. Jordan Bennington playing his best both seasons.
I'm just saying, goalie coming out of nowhere and being incredible. Joel Hofer.
Kyrou playing well like Vladdy did.
Secondary offense,
Matt
guys.
Kessel's your Boom Boom Gunnarsson this time around.
And Boom Boom Gunnarsson will be in attendance tonight.
Look at that. It's all coming
together. Hit the music, T-Bone! Lay down and die, oh no, not I.
Unfortunately, Victor Scott couldn't survive the cuts. We'll talk about it next.
Oh!
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, so we're all excited about the St. Louis Blues. They've done everything you could have asked for. They're back into the playoff race. That's what we were hoping for. Unfortunately, that wasn't the only news from the weekend. The St. Louis Cardinals made a decision that really angered Tanner Hendrickson and was exactly what both Alex and myself expected from them.
Because I like winning.
T-Bone, you just need to start expecting disappointment with the Cardinals.
The Cardinals announced over the weekend that Victor Scott has been reassigned to the minor league camp. He's going to start out the year at Memphis, which means, of course, he will not be starting out the season on the opening day roster for the Cardinals. All he was asked about the decision over the weekend, he said the following, quote, "We talked about it in small groups, big groups. We discussed it quite a bit. Victor Scott needs to be super proud. We got to discuss it this morning. Super proud of the work that he put in this spring. It was the first time that we as a staff and the core group of players really got to see him every day, not only on the field, but also how he goes about his work off of it, how he kind of does his business. He's a very impressive individual, I'll tell you that. He did a nice job on the field, offensively and defensively. He also was good on the bases. He creates havoc. We do believe that some at-bats at AAA make some sense for him. You look at his workload in high A and AA. We just want to make sure that when he comes up here, he never looks back. I think this sets him up for that opportunity." Again, that was Ollie Marmol when asked over the weekend why they decided to keep Siani, depending on how you look at it, on the roster over Victor Scott.
I'm sure Victor Scott really appreciated the deep conversation that they said, you should be proud of what you did. Cool. I'm headed to Memphis. Real proud.
So I'm not surprised by this, and I don't think it was a Carlson versus Scott decision. I think Carlson could easily have played in left field, and it would have given them their best defensive outfield going into opening day. But that would have meant Donovan at DH, which isn't a problem necessarily, and it would have kicked Burleson out of the lineup. So it's really a decision of Burleson versus Victor Scott. And Burleson has been so good in spring training. I don't know if it matters or not. We'll find out. But he's been so good at the plate that I think he's a guy you probably want in your opening day lineup, and you got a decent stretch of righties that you're going to be going up against. So I kind of like the decision there. I wish they would have taken Victor Scott, though. It's frustrating to no end that they decided against having this opportunity to add that kind of speed and defense to their lineup, but I always expected this to be the case, so I don't have the same kind of outrage that I know Tanner feels today. Alex, where are you at on this?
I mean, I won't take up more time of T-Bone because he's starting to get red in the face. I mean, call it
it's hot in here, okay?
Call it jaded, call it pessimistic, but this is how the Cardinals operate. And whether it's, taking advantage of the system to where you're not going to start that time with the Cardinals in terms of the time spent up at the major league level, whether it is you believe that Dylan Carlson and Alec Burleson outperformed Victor Scott, I always knew this was going to be the path that the Cardinals took because Victor Scott, you have to be patient. We don't want him to look back when he gets up here at the major league level. You could have said the same thing when he started the season with the team, and he would have earned the opportunity to be in center field and forced his way onto the major league roster. But this is how the Cardinals operate. Just like in the offseason, they're not going to spend money on the top free agents because that's not how they operate. They don't operate by starting the clock on these younger players.
Yeah, I find it very disappointing that the Cardinals elected to go this route because I think you're a better team all around, both in balance of offense and the balance of defense by carrying Victor Scott. And I know that they were concerned about, well, if he gets called up here, he's outmatched, we send him down. Man, his confidence. Man, he's a ball player. I think Victor Scott would be fine if he had to go back down to AAA to work on things. And it sounded like he was starting to get a little bit exposed up in the zone in spring training towards the end of it. But I think if you bring him up here and he gets that 2-week cup of coffee and it doesn't go well, I think that still benefits him because he goes, okay, now I know what Major League Pitching is going to do to me. Now I know what adjustments I need to make. It's essentially what they did with Mason Wynn down the stretch last year, but there was nothing that they were playing for. That was, okay, Wynn, here's your opportunity. You're going to see Major League Pitching, see what you need to work on in the offseason. And that's what he's going to come into camp and come into this year knowing what he had to do. So I felt like it was a missed opportunity for the Cardinals. I understand that Carlson got hot down the stretch. I understand maybe it was a Burleson thing where, okay, well, they want Burley to be the DH. I don't know. The way they're talking about Matt Carpenter and the way he's been hitting in spring training, I wouldn't be shocked if Marp is the opening day DH in their starting lineup.
I'd be pretty surprised.
Fully expecting that to happen.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I would not be shocked if Matt Carpenter is there.
Reward the veterans that are providing leadership to the team.
I just think that it isn't service time manipulation because it wasn't a clear and obvious he should make the team, kind of like what Jackson Holiday was in Baltimore where they sent him down. But it kind of had some of that feel to it for me, to where it was, I understand not starting the clock early. Man, this team is so worried about the future and not focusing on the present. That's how their offseason felt to me. It's how it feels today with the decision on Victor Scott. I think he gave them the best chance to be a good defensive team and potentially help them offensively and never look back, by the way, and take this job and run with it for a full 162. And they would be better positioned with him on the opening day roster for what they keep telling us is a grueling opening start to the season. And instead, they're playing the long game.
I'm going to ask a question that I don't know if you guys have the answers to. So I know that for the pitching side of things, with the IL, you can backdate it 3 days at the start of the regular season. Do you know if you can do that position player-wise?
I think so.
Okay, so
I don't know the answer to that.
That's fair. If that ends up being the case, and I think you're right, T-Bone, but I just wasn't, I didn't want to say it definitively without having that information in front of me. We're basically talking about 7 games that they're going to play without Lars Nootbaar, probably. Lars Nootbaar could easily be back into the lineup by the time that we get to the home opener here in St. Louis. They'll play the 4 in LA, the 3 in San Diego, and then boom, Lars Nootbaar could technically be back into the starting lineup by that next series here against Miami, opening day. If we're really talking about 7 games, do we really think this is going to make a super significant difference one way or the other? And I think that's probably what went into the thought process here. I do wonder if Lars Nootbaar was going to be out for a month, would they have come to a different conclusion? Because I think that's realistic for Tommy Edman. I don't know when we're going to get him back into the lineup. But with Lars, it sounds like he's pretty close. So I think that's part of what influenced their decision here as well. I'm not telling you have to like it. But if we're talking about him being up, Victor Scott being up for 7 days, and then going right back down to AAA, I don't know that that's worth his while.
I actually think still, even with that, if that is what their thought process is, I would argue, okay, so when Nootbaar comes back, you option Siani or Sinise down, whoever his name is listed on the roster.
Why would you do something like that?
But you're not going to do that if you're not starting Victor Scott.
I think Scott would start still. I think what it is I think it should be Scott.
I think
Nootbaar.
Carlson earned his opportunity.
I also don't think Nootbaar's just going to come back and go right back into the lineup. I think they're going to slow play this thing and be like, oh, we'll get him a couple of DH opportunities.
Going to be, foreshadowing. Nootbaar is one of the most important players on this roster in 2024. He's going to be playing every single day. I still
think it's worth rewarding a kid, though, that performed well in spring training over, what does it say to Victor Scott that, dude, you played awesome, but Michael Siani's going to make this roster over you?
I'm not even talking Siani. I'm more focused on Carlson. Look, I know he got hot down the stretch. Man, I think you know what Dylan Carlson is. And I know they're going to say, no, we don't. He dealt with injury. Man, he did that game with freaking Paul DeYoung, for crying out loud. I think you are better off if they would have had, because I'm sure they are using the whole Nootbaar thing. I think you could have then carried Carlson as the 4th outfielder, which they designated him as going into the season, which was the right decision, by the way, and then said, okay, let's go with Scott in center, Nootbaar in left, Walker in right, and Carlson can come in as a defensive replacement for Walker late in games.
I think you're underestimating what the potential ceiling is for Dylan Carlson. I don't think he's a great defensive center fielder. I also kind of want to see what it looks like, because in spring training he's been better. Now there have been issues still against right-handed pitching, but down the stretch he's been better against righties. I want to see what it looks like. And if it looks really bad, man, this is his last opportunity. He has one more chance to grab onto that job as being a legitimate starting player for the St. Louis Cardinals. Hell, he could win that job over Tommy Edman. Edman is not guaranteed the job when he gets back, whether it's Dylan Carlson or Victor Scott. There's a chance that Edman just ends up in a super utility role, no matter who ended up starting out the season in center field. But I do think there's still a little bit there potentially with Dylan Carlson. If he gets back to 2021 form, I'm not telling you that I believe it. I'm skeptical. I think that this is going to end up being a little bit of a problem for them. But if he does, then he just earns the job and he runs with it long term. So I don't mind it. I wish that they would have taken Victor Scott, because I think it would have been a hell of a lot of fun to watch. But the way that Dylan Carlson played down the stretch, the way that we've seen Burleson play all spring training long, and the numbers never mattered for Donovan because he was always going to be a starter for them regardless of what happened in spring training, things just ended up kind of working against Victor Scott with everything that was happening around him. And oh, by the way, Victor Scott slowed down the stretch as well. When you put all of that together, that's how you end up with a decision like this. Alex, you and I, not in the least bit surprised. This is kind of what we expected them to do all along, unfortunately. Coming up in about 15 minutes or so, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. If you guys have any questions, we'll get to them coming up at 11:45. But coming up next, it is time for some NCAA tournament quick hitters. T-Bone's Illini continue to fight on, and what happened to the upsets? Why is there exactly 0 Cinderella stories this year? We'll talk about it next here on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends at Classic Air Care who have been making people comfortable since 1926. And when it comes to your HVAC system, whether you got a really old one like I do or you just bought a new one, you need to find the company that is going to give you the proper maintenance for that unit. I'll paint the picture because I've got the old unit, 26-year-old HVAC system that I'm on the maintenance program with Classic Air Care, which means they come out before every spring, every fall, before I flip the heat on. They check it, they clean it, they fine-tune it. They remind me that it's old, but they also give me the pointers that I need to get me through the next year. And that's what I love about them. And if there's issues, which I've had issues in the past of, the air stopping to work for a little bit or it's not getting hot enough, they'll come out there immediately. That's what that maintenance program is there for. And if you don't believe me, check out hundreds of reviews that they have up on the Google Reviews rating. This one from Gail. We've been with Classic Air Care for years now. The service is outstanding. They perform our annual furnace check and extremely nice, explained things as he went through, totally professional. So make sure you call the right company to take care of your HVAC system. That's Classic Air Care, classicaircare.com.
Terry Hendrickson here, the Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Big Blues for the game tonight as they're back in action taking on the Vegas Golden Knights. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 6 o'clock with Alex Ferrario and Joey Vitale. Then Joey will join Chris Carver for Puck Drop at 7. And the Cardinals are in Arizona as they wrap up the spring training slate. 2 games against the Cubs. Today, 3:05 will be first pitch, and Steven Matz will get the start for St. Louis. The Sports Update is driven by Johnny Londoff. Find your road shop 24/7 at londoff.com, londoffAutoplex.com. Are you kidding me?
All right, let's dive into some NFL. All right, let's dive into some NCAA tournament quick hitters. Take two. Here on 101 ESPN.
Technically, it's the same thing, right?
NFL, NCAA. It's close enough.
Now I know why you wanted the NFL bet here.
Guys,
I said it.
That's what did it. Alex said in the break, why don't we go ahead and use the NFL?
By the way, like 3.5 minutes ago.
What happened to upsets in the NCAA tournament? We had a bunch of them last year.
I'd say they were upsetting.
No.
Come on.
No.
Come on.
No.
The camera follow me around here a little bit.
The top 3 seeds are 19-1 straight up in this year's tournament. The favorites went 15-1 in the round of 32. The only non-top 4 seeds that remain are Clemson, NC State, Gonzaga, and San Diego State. San Diego State and Gonzaga are both 5 seeds. This is not a surprise that they're here. The only real surprises are Clemson and NC State, and NC State had a pretty darn easy path to be able to get here. What happened? What happened to a Cinderella story in the Sweet 16? I'm not talking about a Final Four run. This is the second weekend of the tournament, and we have none of the teams that we were hoping to see.
It's called the BKO because we spent Friday talking about how, there's no more, they're not scared of the Goliaths anymore. It's because these Davids come in and are ready to compete. Well, all the Goliaths won. They took the stone to the head and they said, we're good, boys. I mean, looking through these, were any of the Cinderellas even close?
Grand Canyon played well last night. The
Grand Canyon
end result
really
doesn't look like it was close, but that was a good game.
And I don't know if you'd call them a Cinderella, but I mean, Oregon and Creighton were good up until overtime when they decided to stop playing. But
Oakland
I mean,
played well against NC State.
Well, they're not a Cinderella team.
Oakland?
Yeah. Didn't you hear what's his face after the game?
Oh,
they were not Cinderella.
I was like, what are you talking about, man?
He bought into that one. But I mean, like, you look at some of the other ones, like Utah State. Okay, that wasn't going to happen. Colorado at least kept it a little bit close. I don't know, this season, because we've said going into the tournament, it's so up in the air and you don't really have a read on this. I think when it's up in the air like that, the juggernauts are going to be the ones that pull out on top.
I use KenPom a lot. It's a ranking system, just like anything else, right?
I do too, man.
It's essentially power rankings, and it goes by offensive and defensive efficiency. Of their top 14 teams that made it into the tournament this year, 13 of them are still playing.
Who was the one that's not playing, buddy?
The one that I picked to win it all, who lost in the first round against bleeping Yale.
Lives again.
In Auburn. Kara, my wife, we're both in a bracket challenge together. She picked Kentucky to win the NCAA tournament. Man. So her bracket was immediately shredded apart.
Kara took on Kylie as the last name, and now she's got a BKO effect.
She's so losing everything now.
I took Auburn. They lose in the first round of the NCAA tournament. I have 13 of my other 15 Sweet 16 members. Unfortunately, Auburn's gone, which means that it's over. So
you're awful at this.
I sure am, buddy. I sure am. So where we're at right now is with a bunch of the best teams that remain, which should create one hell of a second weekend of the NCAA tournament. Like, if you're somebody that just wants to watch quality basketball, there's some really good matchups heading into this weekend. The most interesting one to me is your squad, T-Bone. Yep. Yes. The Illini fighting off against the Iowa State
Cyclones.
I was going to call them the Hurricanes there for a second.
It's not hockey,
Number one offense versus the number one defense in basketball. I do want to ask you, T-Bone, about your squad. There's a great piece over in The Athletic earlier today on how they got here, finally breaking through and getting to the Sweet 16. They changed their roster construction. They went with a lot more wings, switchability, playing a different style of basketball than they did the last couple of seasons. And also, they decided to just put the ball into Terrence Shannon's hands and Damask's hands a lot of the season. What have you seen from your team? Are you believing in what they have become?
Oh, I'm totally believing what they've become. I'm ready to be heartbroken on Thursday when they go up against the number one defense in the country, according to KenPom. It's interesting how they decided to build this team because though they are back, they used Damask and back him in, kind of use him as, I didn't realize he was 6'6" until I read this piece. This whole lineup is huge.
And you call yourself
Ty Rodgers
fan.
is 6'6" too. Well, they don't look sick. They don't look big. Like Terrence Shannon doesn't look necessarily like I think he's 6'7" if I'm not mistaken.
Cameras take off a few inches.
Yeah, clearly. But it is interesting because you're right. I think they like to now start to play a little fast as well. So if they get a rebound, they want the ball in Shannon's hands and they want to go. Yep. But if they get in the half court, they're willing to play slow. They're willing to back it down to Mass, see if the double teams come. That's what they did against Morehead State. That second half, they used him to kind of draw in the double teams, and then they also brought in Dane Danger for more size to get more points.
So that's the other thing they're doing is they're looking for mismatches.
Yeah.
And if their early offense doesn't work, they identify this is our mismatch, let's go to it and exploit it as quickly as humanly possible, and Danger was their guy. Like in the first couple of rounds, he became the piece that they could go to. So you know that you need Terrence Shannon to be great. It's kind of like the Blues. The first thing is you need Benner to stand on his head. And then after that, if we can add 2 other guys that have a big game, that's their formula. I think they've got a pretty decent shot to be able to take down Iowa State because of the way that they've been playing.
And it is interesting because the years prior, it had been when they backed the ball down. It's got a little bit, to me, of the Io and Kofi team, except they don't use a center to back the ball down. They use a forward / a guard, a wing, whatever you want to call Domask, and they back him down. Because it used to be they would use Io in the Terrence Shannon role, which was he was going to be the guy that was going to slash into the lane, create some mismatches, try and get to the hole and score. He was not a good three-point shooter at Illinois, but if they wanted to go inside, they would go play bully ball with Coburn. Well, now they don't do that. If they want to play quote-unquote bully ball, it's with Domask, and he just backs his way in, plays slow, steady. He looks for anybody that may be on a double team looking for that mismatch if it comes, or they like to go fast with Terrence Shannon. I love this freaking team. This is the best team that he's had, and they are so well-balanced. Duquesne had no answers for them.
All right, let's go through a couple other things so that way we can get a bigger picture of what took place over the weekend. Alex, the team that impressed you the most with their performance over the weekend was who?
Probably, man, I know it's going to be chalky, but UConn, mostly because they are a juggernaut.
Yeah, they're a buzzsaw right now.
I saw the first half of that game, and I'm thinking there is nobody that's going to stop UConn. And the matchup that they're going to get for the next round, it sucks for Illinois because of this bracket if they get beyond Iowa State. I just don't see anybody taking down UConn for how dominant they are on every angle of their game.
T-Bone, who impressed you the most over the weekend?
I would say Gonzaga.
Dude, that's what I was going to go with. Their second half against Kansas, I don't know that I've seen a better half of basketball this year.
Oh, yeah, they wiped the floor.
I thought they would beat Kansas. Like, I had Gonzaga on the spread, which was like 4.5 or something like that. I thought they'd win. Man, they kicked the crap out of the Jayhawks in the second half. I was skeptical of them coming into the tournament because, remember, they were one of those teams that about a month ago were probably on the outside looking in, and they have just turned it on. They look like a legitimate kind of threat here in the NCAA tournament.
Who was the team, because that's mine as well, T-Bone, that I was so incredibly impressed with them. The team that underwhelmed you the most. It could have been a team that ended up finding a way to win, but the team that underwhelmed relative to expectations from this weekend, Alex, was
Mine was Baylor. I mean, I didn't think Clemson was that good coming into this game. And I mean, it was an 8-point game, so like it was close, but Baylor was just so underwhelming. The way that I had heard Baylor plays was going to be a juggernaut in that division. And boy, they were very they couldn't make baskets to save their life. There was nothing underneath the paint. Baylor was definitely underwhelming for me.
I would go Marquette. Marquette, I had them getting to the Final Four in my bracket. That's 2 games now where they've let the opponent hang around. They let, I think, what was it, Western Kentucky hang around quite a bit in that game. And then this weekend, it was the same thing, where that game was a little too close for comfort, in my opinion, in which they beat Colorado. So they're the team going into the second week, and then I'm going, okay, they're probably going to fall off the table. They've been disappointing, in my opinion.
Yeah. See, it sounds weird to say, given the fact that they scored 100 points, but I would say Houston.
Yeah.
Houston did not look great last night against Texas A&M. They had a very real chance to lose that game against A&M. Their defense didn't exist, really, for the vast majority of the game. Texas A&M hit a bunch of critical shots down the stretch, and they deserve a ton of credit. But Houston was one of the favorites coming into this tournament, and they looked a little underwhelming. They looked kind of rattled down the stretch, and half of their team was on the bench because of foul trouble at the end of that game. I think they'll beat Duke. I don't believe in this Duke team at all. I know they beat the hell out of James Madison. That surprised me a bit, but I was underwhelmed with Houston. I'm curious to see what they look like against Duke.
To that point, Sampson committed coaching malpractice yesterday.
Like 7 times.
Yeah, and got away with it.
Good.
And part of the reason was because A&M had, though they hit critical shots, they also took some questionable shots. Sampson nearly put his team in a really bad spot the way he coached in the final 2 minutes plus overtime.
So we will get more into the bracket as we go along this week. They start action back up on Thursday for the round of 16, the Sweet 16, which does include this time around the Illinois.
Congrats on not choking, man.
Illini. So congratulations to Brad Underwood. He's finally able to break through. T-Bone, this is their first Sweet 16 in like 20 years?
Yeah.
Since the 90s.
05.
Oh, yeah, 05.
I think the year they got to the championship game. Which, man, I totally forgot it. There's been some tough times.
That's been a long. Those John Gross Orange Jackets.
I think he only made it once.
Yeah, well, it's because of those ugly jackets.
John Gross era won't be remembered fondly.
What are you talking about?
I can't believe it's been that long, dude.
That was Bruce Weber's squad with Darren Williams that got to the championship game.
Yeah.
I can't remember who else
D.
was on that
Brown.
squad.
I remember D. Brown. I love that man. Didn't make it in the NBA.
He's coaching now in college basketball. 20 years almost since the Fighting Illini made it to the Sweet 16 last time.
I'd say the do factor to lose to Iowa State in the next round.
Yeah, to say the least. We'll certainly break that game down as we get closer. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Coming up next, questions and answers here on BK and Ferrario.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my dentist, 100 West Dental. If you're in the market for a new dentist, and look, you might have one you're just not happy with, or maybe you've just been dentist shopping, going to different dentists, it's time to pick one, and it's time to stick with one. And what I mean by that is finding one that is going to take care of you and your mouth in the long run. And that's what Dr. Pryor and his team are all about. It's a brand new office off of Manchester. Patient experience is so important to them. They make it as comfortable as possible for you and memorable, but the part that I talk so much about is the preventative procedures, which means they're taking care of you and your mouth in the long run. Early detections, they're checking the strength of your teeth, how your gums are, how your tongue is. All of that matters in the long run for your overall health. So when you get out there, mention my name, Alex Ferrario. You can get $1,000 off of an Invisalign package if you want to do that. You can schedule online. You can even do an online consultation with Dr. Pryor before you even walk through the door. 636-585-0100 or online at 100westdental.com. Get with the best at 100 West.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service X line for questions and answers. Let's start with this from the 314. We're just talking about this off air. Guys, I'm going to ask again. Am I the only person wanting the Ohtani betting scandal to destroy the Dodgers, stick them with all that salary and nothing to show for it? Does that make me a bad person? I just can't even tell anymore.
No, makes you love chaos like me. So you're basically just like Alex Ferrario. So congrats.
Yes, means you're a bad person.
Whoa! I'm not a bad person.
If this were to completely take him down, I think it would be grounds for the Dodgers to nix the contract.
Terminate the contract.
So I actually don't think...
Did that with Bauer? And I think Franco's getting the same thing in Tampa.
I think with Bauer, they had to pay it, though.
Oh, did
because it was, like, still going through the legal process. If this were to end up sticking and they held off for a little while and he was convicted of something, I don't know specifically what he would be convicted of here because they're going after the guy with the gambling ring.
Does that mean he'd be a free agent, though?
I don't know how that would work. I think he would be banned from baseball if he were found to have bet on the game, though. So that's where
Pete Rose and Shohei.
It's really tough. But yeah, I hear what you're saying. I do think this is something that could be. I always rail against the idea of distractions. This is a distraction. This is real and tangible. This is not some silly side thing. This is real, so I do wonder how it's going to affect the team.
I find it amazing he hasn't spoken to the team yet. Did you see that? So there was a piece written by Andy McCullough and Ken Rosenthal. He hasn't even had. So the interpreter had a conversation with the team back in Korea, in Seoul, after he got fired.
Immediately.
Yeah, and yet Ohtani still has not spoken to the team.
I think that's all scripted by Ohtani and the lawyers. They're like, dude, you can't say one thing. That's why
it eventually leaks.
That's why he's speaking to the media. With all of the media in LA, they're thinking, dude, you have to keep your mouth silent. You need to go like strict, like convent. What's it called? Where the nuns are. Convent?
What?
I don't know.
What
anyway, you need to have a vow of silence right now because this needs to be scripted. With all of that media, somebody's going to leak whatever you say.
Yeah, I also, the more I read on this, the more I do wonder, like, I wonder if everybody fell for a con man here. And Ipe, is how you pronounce his name?
I think so.
If that's his real name.
Which we don't know. Like, legitimately, we have no idea.
This is going to be an awesome Netflix documentary.
Yeah, for sure. This is good. Remember the documentary on Manti Te'o? It's going to be something like that.
I can't wait to find out who picks it up. HBO, Netflix,
Hulu. Netflix. They do a great job.
The translator, in his bio for the Angels, it said, hey, he worked for the Red Sox back in 2010. He apparently never worked for the Red Sox.
Hey, man, you got to lie on your resume to get a job.
He said that he went to a university in California. They have no record of anybody with his name having gone or attended that university. So there's a lot more questions than answers that have been raised thus far with the whole Shohei Ohtani situation. And it feels like the easiest, most simple answer to a lot of them is this guy was a con artist that was able to win over Shohei Ohtani, and by doing so was able to weasel his way into a lot of money and a lot of situations that he never should have been involved in, and nobody asked any questions because he's Shohei Ohtani's guy, and to get into the Shohei Ohtani business, which everybody wants to do, you have to accept the fact that this guy's going to be a part of that. So that's my current read on the situation. Obviously, there's a lot more that needs to be known, but that's where I'm at on it. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 314. Guys, to the casual soccer fans like yourselves, do games like Saturday night with wasting time discontinue you from watching the game? T-Bone, were you able to watch much of the City game on Saturday?
I did not see much of it, but I heard about the complaints. I know exactly what happened without even having to see the game. I do find the flopping a problem in soccer. And like, I played soccer and I would call myself even beyond a casual fan. I really enjoy watching the game both here and
I would say me and Alex are casual fans. T-Bone's an actual soccer fan.
Yeah. I find it extremely frustrating and extremely annoying. If a guy's actually hurt and ends up going off the field and getting worked on, that's one thing. To roll around, flop around, stick on the field, and then 2-3 minutes go by, and then you just get up and run away like nothing happened, and you're just selling it to the official. That's extremely annoying. All soccer leagues have implemented the ref can give a yellow card for flopping, yet they never implement it like they should. I was about to
say, basketball has that as well.
Hockey has
NHL
it with the fine.
But It still
You need to-
exists. I don't know how you get rid of it, honestly.
You need to use it more. You need to be more forceful in using it. Like if you see the first instance of it, it needs to be a red card.
Oh, not that much.
I mean,
a yellow.
I mean, how do you want to get rid of it?
I mean, if you give it red, I mean,
Kicking him out of the game, right?
You're making an even bigger problem, though, potentially.
I think it's a massive problem, though.
It'd be
for
like saying when you,
sports.
instead of calling embellishment and sending the guy to the box, which they do in hockey. Now, granted, they also take the guy, which is stupid, but that would be like saying give him a 10-minute misconduct and he's out of the game. Like, you just don't go that far. A yellow card is essentially the 2-minute minor in hockey.
Okay, but if you're using it, they're like, okay, cool. So I get a 2-minute minor, and then what? I'm going to go back out there and they'll do it again.
5-on-4.
I think you're going to have to be harsh at some point if you want to get rid of it. Otherwise, people are going to keep doing it.
I mean, 2 yellow cards and you're gone anyways. So
I'd say yellow, because once you get a yellow, you have to play cautious, because that's like playing with 4 fouls in basketball in college, to where those guys, unlike Houston, should be playing cautiously. A yellow card would be huge, especially if you implement it early on in a game.
Yeah, I think that's the best thing you can do. I don't know that it solves it. If you go any further, like if you go to where Alex is talking about here, and I understand where you're coming from totally, because it's clearly a problem for the league, I think it creates other issues. Like the NFL, for example, just implemented this drop tackle ban. I think they just opened up a whole host of other issues for themselves by doing that, where now guys are going to be going for the legs, which is the last thing an NFL player wants you to do. Like they said there was like 20 instances of a drop tackle in the entire 2024 season. Well, now instead of that, they are going to teach tackling different. When you go across the middle of the field, instead of attacking the head or neck area, guys attack the knees, which is a problem for the players. Now, obviously, the head and neck area, also a problem, what they tried to outlaw from the league. But now you're having guys that are having their livelihood potentially attacked by them having a torn ACL or something. The same thing is going to happen here. Yeah. So I say all of that to say this, like there's unintended consequences sometimes when you make these rule changes. And if you were to implement a red card, for example, for embellishment, now you've got other issues. When is that going to actually be called? Is it going to be at the discretion of the referees? Are there going to be different interpretations of that rule depending upon the different referees? We know the answer to all of these questions is yes. So then it creates other frustrations within the game as well. All right, coming up in 15 minutes, we'll play a game of in or out. But next, Jordan Kyrou is playing his best at the exact right time. Alex, I want to hear what you have seen from him in the last 2 games that has changed, that has allowed him to open up his offensive arsenal once again. We'll talk about it next here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex Ferrario, I'm Brandon Kiley for our friends over at Circa Sports Illinois. Alex, we were over in the Illinois side of the state the other day. We were able to place all of our bets on the Circa Sports app during the games. You can do the live betting before the games. They will have the best odds available for you. They want you to check out other menus. Go to other sports books. See what they have to offer. Circa Sports in Illinois believes they will give you the best bang for your buck. When you bet with them, you are not going to be limited, and they are going to have the best odds available for you. They take pride in that over at Circa Sports.
They do, and look, I've already put together the parlays in the tournament. I'm going to keep putting those together. Heck, might start getting some hockey parlays together with the Blues making this playoff push, but I do those parlays because they don't limit people based off of their winnings. Everybody gets the same limit, unlike other sports books, like you heard BK talk about, and they keep as little money as possible on those large market bets, whether it's the tournament, anything like that. Check them out. They want you to go look around, but they know you'll come back to Circa Sportsbook Illinois. If you or someone you know may have a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER or text ILGAMB to 833-234.
Jordan Kyrou is playing his best when it matters the most. Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, you got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Alex, on Thursday, me and T-Bone had the let's have an honest conversation about Jordan Kyrou.
Ha! Idiots!
And since then, he has taken his game to another level. Now, I think this is meaningful because if the Blues are going to do anything relevant down the stretch, they need him to be the best player on the ice regularly. It doesn't have to be every game, but pretty consistently, he's got to be a player that you can count on. And now in the last 2 games, 4 goals, 6 points in total. If you're looking at plus minus, I know some people take it or leave it, but he's a plus 5 in the last 2 games.
That line is a plus 13.
Kind of matters. The Blues are in a good spot right now with Jordan Kyrou. What has changed? What have you seen from him that looks different in the last couple of games compared to what it was, where I think he had like 2 goals in his previous 14 games combined?
I think it's confidence more than anything. I mean, he said it after that Ottawa Senators game with Curbs and Joey, like his confidence had been shot a little bit, which I can't blame him when you're that snake bitten and you're supposed to be a goal scorer. You were taken off the top line. You were taken off the number 1 power play unit. You got to be thinking, man, what do I got to do? He was still shooting the puck through 7 games. He had 21 shots on goal, and I think the difference with Jordan Kyrou's game in these last 2 was he was more engaged. The goals that he scored, all 4 of those goals in his last 2 games came but from the face-off dots below towards the goal line. So, I mean, he's going to the front of the net, which, surprise, surprise, guys, when you go to the front of the net, you score goals, but he's shooting it more. Drew Bannister talked more about it with him, that I want you to utilize your speed and I want you to start going wide. Stop trying to go down the middle and trying to go east-west and make the pass. Take the puck, go wide, go to the front of the net. And I think he did that a lot in that Minnesota Wild game where he scored those 3 goals. Here's the other thing that he's doing. And this has a lot to do with the confidence, in my opinion. If you go back and watch that Minnesota Wild game, they matched up Kyrou, Buchnevich. Now, I think this was more Minnesota thinking that they had the defensive upper hand, which they did. But they matched up Kyrou, Saad, and Buchnevich against the Kaprizov line. Kyrou was on Kaprizov's hip the entire game. He was bumping into him, taking a couple of extra whacks with him, and then he was utilizing the ability to outskate Kaprizov. That is an engaged Kyrou. And I said this on postgame Saturday. The reason people get so frustrated with Kyrou is because when it looks like that, he is the best player on the ice. Yep. And when he's not engaged, you don't even know he's out there. That's the night and day with Jordan Kyrou. And you hope that if it is the confidence factor that changed for him, now he's going to start wheeling and dealing at even strength and utilize his best assets, which is his speed.
So the other thing that's changed recently, this has been a few games now, is that he's playing with Pavel Buchnevich as his center. He's not paired with Robert Thomas anymore. They moved Neighbors and Shin up to that top line, and Kyrou is now on that line with Buch. Do you think that has been a significant factor in this as well?
I do. I mean, look, Kyrou has 4 goals since they put him on a line with Pavel Buchnevich, and they only did it with 2 games. It was the Senators game and the Wild game. He's got 4 goals, and Pavel Buchnevich has an assist on every one of those goals. It's odd because when I watch the game with Buch, you can tell that he's not comfortable at the center position. Like, faceoffs has not been good, 23.8% in his last 2 games. And it's not like he's making the playmaking moves. He acts as a winger when he's playing the center position, but he's always coming away with those secondary chances that either it's a shot that goes right to Kyrou or it's a pass that he fakes the shot with. And I think what that is and why that line seems to be so dangerous right now with Pavel Buchnevich is there's not set positions for these guys. Like, Kyrou has played center in the past. Kyrou was a center when he played in juniors. So, like, he can move to the center position if he has to with Pavel Buchnevich. Buchnevich can be at the center position. I don't know what it is. It doesn't look pretty. Defensively, I think it's still a liability with him as a centerman. But when you've got 4 assists and Kyrou's got 4 goals, if you're Bannister, you say, hell with it. We're just going to take advantage of the matchups when we're on home ice and let this line go to work offensively.
What I've seen recently with this combination, this group of players, tells me one thing. Your biggest need going into the offseason, and I've been saying this for a couple of weeks now, but it's just kind of reaffirming it for me, reaffirming my priors. I think your biggest need going into the offseason is a number 2 center.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think you have one on the roster right now. If you wanted to bring back Buchnevich, Kyrou, Shin, Neighbor, Saad, you could do that. And you could make it work salary cap-wise and everything else for now and for the future. but you got to get a number 2 center. I don't know who that guy is. I don't know where you're going to find him. It's probably someone via free agency, and I don't even know who the options would be going into the offseason.
To be honest with you, I don't think there are a lot of good ones this offseason.
I don't think it needs to be great, though. Can you get somebody that can create, that is solid defensively?
I think you got to get somebody who can work. If you're going to keep Pavel Buchnevich, with my expectation would be that they do, you got to get somebody who works well with Buch and Kyrou, and I don't know what that model is.
Because you could do like a Neighbors, Thomas, Saad as your top line. It doesn't profile as a top line compared to some of the other teams around the league.
Your hope is that Snuggerud can play up there.
Sure, but my guess is they're probably going to start him out on the third line next year because we know how this team operates with young players. So you'll go Saad, Neighbors, Thomas as your top line, Buch, insert center here, and Kyrou as your second line. And now you have really started to build out what that lineup can be. Put Shin back at center on the third line, figure out what to do with Kevin Hayes, and now you've got some degree of like a Bolduc or a Snuggerud, Kapanen, depending on what you decide to do this offseason. You've got those guys available for you on your third line. The number 1 need to me is the number 2 center. Buch is doing an okay job there, but I think it shows you can win with Buch and Kyrou on the same line. I just don't know that they can be with Thomas. I think you need a little bit more of that top 6 breaking those guys up.
Yeah, and if you look at the free agent market, there's not a centerman that I think works in that spot. I think you're going to have to acquire this via trade. And I don't know if that means you're going to have to move on from Buch. I don't know if this means you're going to have to trade some of these assets in the minor leagues that Doug Armstrong has talked about, like maybe a restricted free agent, Martin Necas, we brought his name up. If they can't re-sign him, do you go to the Ottawa Senators and see if you can get somebody from them? I think that center position upgrade is going to have to be via trade. I know a lot of Blues fans probably think it's Dalibor Dvorsky because he's having a sensational season. I just don't see him starting the season with the team. And if he does next year, it ain't going to be playing in a top 6 role. So you're going to have to go out there and acquire that next centerman, i.e. kind of what you had to do in the offseason when you had Braden Shen in 2019 and you said, man, we need more around this. And you got Ryan O'Reilly, you signed Tyler Bozak. I think you're going to have an offseason like that next year.
Just go ahead and sign Sam Reinhart, call it a day. He's Alex, that's T-Bone on BK.
Cool.
You got
$8
BK
million
and
to
Ferrario
hand
here
out
on 101 ESPN. In or out coming up next here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for in or out. You give us a scenario, we will tell you if we're in or out here on 101 ESPN. All right, Alex, let's start out with this one. In or out, UConn will win back-to-back national championships after they run the table once again this year.
I'm going to say in. I think that matchup in the championship, mostly because my bracket has it, is UConn versus Purdue, and I would give the upper hand to UConn. I think we've talked about it. Purdue is a one-trick pony to where they center their team around that big centerman with Edey. I just watched UConn play. Like I said, I only saw the first half against Northwestern, but man, every element of their game feels like they're so dominant in. So I'm going to say in.
I think I'm going to say in as well. I was skeptical if they could do it just because back-to-back is so hard. But, man, they look like a buzzsaw right now. Now, that's alarming as an Illini fan because I can look up above after the Iowa State matchup.
Game.
No, we're going to beat Iowa State.
Can't get through a cyclone.
I don't know if the Illini could get past UConn. That team looks awesome right now, so I would say I'm in on this.
The last team, do you guys remember the last team that was able to get to back-to-back? That won back-to-back
or win
back-to-back national titles. You guys remember? Timo, it was pretty early for you, so I don't know.
Duke?
No.
I don't know.
Duke was the one prior
North
to
Carolina?
91-92. Duke went to back-to-back.
Vandy?
There's only been one other team that's done it since in the last 32 years. Did you say Vandy?
Yeah, no, not Vandy.
That was a brain fart.
That was a brain fart.
It's right conference.
Mizzou.
No.
Kentucky.
No.
Oh, not Kentucky?
No.
Hell, it was
Auburn?
not Mizzou.
No.
Florida. Florida did it with Billy Donovan back in 06-07 with the Joakim Noah team.
Yeah. And didn't they have Al Horford, too?
Yeah, those are a really good teams.
That was when players didn't just leave after 1 year. They stuck around.
Kind of similar to what we're watching right now.
Players leave now.
I'm out on this, but just because of how difficult it is. If I was just to say, like, who's the best team playing right now in the NCAA tournament, it is very clearly UConn. They just have a really tough path, man. We said it whenever we opened up with the tournament. Their region was so clearly the most difficult to be able to get out of. Whoever did it is going to have every reason to believe in that team going into the Final Four, but it's just a really tough path for UConn. So I'm going to say out because of how difficult it is to get out of their region.
Well, this ties into what my in or out was going to be because I was going to go with a theme of the 1 seeds. In or out, Shannon Sharp knew something. With all 4 1 seeds getting to the Final Four, we will see all 4 1s get there.
I don't think he knew something. I think Shannon Sharp was like, oh, I got to fill out a bracket?
I don't think he feel about that bracket.
Take all number 4s and just all number 1s and put them in there. And he did it for the women's side, too. I haven't kept track of the women's. Are all the number 1s alive in there still?
There were not a lot of upsets in the women's
There
side.
typically isn't. Yeah, the number 1 seeds are all of it.
Yeah.
Still
Man,
allowed.
he knows
Shannon Sharp
something.
doesn't know anything.
By the way, speaking of the women's game, Caitlin Clark plays tonight. Excited for that one.
Who do they play?
There was a really good women's game last night, by the way. Iowa State versus Stanford was spectacular.
I got Blues and Golden Knights.
I
Man.
had enough basketball fever. I started watching a show, but I'll take your word for
Started
it.
watching a show. You shutting it down until Thursday?
I'm out, by the way. I'm out.
Really? I think I'm out. Who's the team you think doesn't get there if it's not multiple? I think it's Houston.
I think UNC's not going to get there.
I think Houston's the one that I'm worried about. UNC would probably be my second one,
those
but I
would be
think
the
they'll
two.
get there.
I
Those would
never
be the two I'm worried
believed in UNC.
Purdue looks awesome.
Purdue looks. It's going to be Purdue versus UConn. Like everybody just needs to get on board.
Houston, I like because of the path. They've got to beat Duke and then one of North Carolina or Marquette or NC State or Marquette, and I think they probably will and should do both of those things. UNC, I think they should beat Alabama. I think they should beat the winner of Clemson versus Arizona, but I don't believe in that team at all. At all. I still am skeptical of them. UConn has a tough
Purdue versus
tough
Tennessee
path,
might be interesting.
and Purdue has a really tough path.
Yeah.
But those are the two teams that I believe in the most. So it depends on, do you care more about the path or do you care more about the team? So I think one of them will end up falling early.
All right, guys, in or out of the top teams that the Blues play down the stretch, there's 4 of them: Edmonton, Nashville, Dallas, and Carolina. In or out, the Blues win 3 of those 4.
Out.
Against Edmonton, Nashville, Vegas, and who was the other?
Carolina. So Edmonton's at home, Nashville's on the road, Carolina's at home, Dallas is on the road. Win 3 of 4.
I'll give them 2, so I'm going to say out. I think they win 2 of them.
In
But
that
all
scenario,
that matters, though, you got to win this one.
but in that scenario, though, you're still putting yourself in a bad spot. You have to hope that Vegas struggles down the
And you
stretch.
just got to take care of business against everybody else.
But even that,
you allow, by winning tonight, you allow yourself the opportunity
2 mulligans.
to lose a couple of these games. You just have to take care of business against Calgary, San Jose again, Anaheim, Chicago, Seattle. Those are the games that you really need to win.
Here's the thing I'm not buying into. I don't buy into the theme that Vegas has a gauntlet of a schedule. They got a tough schedule, don't get me wrong, especially this next stretch.
It's much more difficult than yours.
Yeah, absolutely. But, like, they do play, what is this? They play 6 more games at home, and they have been one of the best teams at home this season. And you're taking on some of those tough opponents on home ice. Colorado, Vancouver, I would anticipate. Right now, the gauntlet of a schedule that Vegas is to go through are the next 2 games after the Blues. It's Nashville and Winnipeg on the road.
Yeah, it's tough relative to the Blues.
Well, yeah, everybody's tough relative to the Blues.
But that's what I'm saying is, like, we look at the Blues schedule and then we look at Vegas and it's like, whoa, they have a gauntlet. The truth is, if you go over to Tankathon, they put together the list of the toughest remaining strength of schedules. They're literally right in the middle of the NHL. Yeah. They're at 15th when it comes to remaining strength of schedule. The Blues are 30th.
Yeah.
There's only 2 teams, Seattle and Calgary, that have an easier remaining strength of schedule than what the Blues have right now.
And not to be the doubter of this, I am out on this, though, because I think that Nashville game is going to be probably a loss, let's be honest. I think you could win versus Edmonton on home ice. I think the tough one that we're not talking enough about is when they take on Carolina at home. I think you could beat Dallas the last game of the season. Typically, Dallas is going to rest people at that point. Carolina is going to be the one that's going to be very difficult.
The thing for the Blues that helps him, they have 3 games against the teams that are picking in the top 3.
Yeah, and those teams are going to be tanking.
I do think, though, in that 4-game stretch, you probably need 5 points. If you probably need an overtime loss of those 2.
Especially if you lose this one, or even if you win this one and Vegas does what we thought, 7-4 down this last stretch, I think you're going to need some overtime losses in that stretch.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for in or out. From the 618, guys, in or out, Goldie will be a Cardinal in 2025.
Out
as well.
I don't need any context to this. I'm out.
I think they're going to sink this year.
When they
the Cardinals?
Yeah.
Is that really your opinion?
Yeah, I don't think they're a good baseball team. I don't think they have the pitching, and I'm skeptical of having to rely on an offense to carry you through a season.
I was listening to Jason Stark's podcast over on The Athletic. It was Jason Stark, Doug Glanville, Tyler Kepner, who used to write about baseball for the New York Times, now writes for The Athletic, and Ken Rosenthal. Those 4 gave their season predictions. So they went through every National League division to give who they had as their winners from each division, right? So they get to the NL Central, and first of all, they just laugh because they're like, do we really have to talk about this division? Naturally. And then each of them selected their winner. First one went with the Cubs. Second one went with the Reds. Third one went with the Brewers.
What?
And the fourth one went back to the Chicago Cubs. So you had 3 different teams that were selected from the Central Division by Major League Baseball experts, analysts, whatever you want to call them, none of which was the Cardinals. The Cardinals were in the pairing with the Pittsburgh Pirates. One of them explained why they didn't pick the Cardinals, and they said they're just too old. So that's where the Cardinals are.
I thought the age was the upper hand that the Cardinals had this season.
Cardinals are selling that they're getting more experienced. National analysts are saying you're old. So
you are
depending
old.
on who's right, I think that'll determine for a large part what the course of the
You're
season
so old that I think 3 of your starting pitchers are going to break for a long period of time this season.
Yeah.
And that's not a recipe for success for this team.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line.
Enjoy this playoff run.
Hey, opening day Thursday.
Guys, in or out, the Cardinals will win at least 4 of their first 7 games against the Dodgers and the Padres.
Out.
The Padres are getting some hype, by the way. I don't know why this is coming.
Well, their pitching hasn't been very good, at least through spring training these last couple of
Their rotation
rounds
should
through.
be okay. Their lineup's interesting because, like, you look at their lineup and you go, "Wow, that top 4 or 5," and then you go, "Wow, that bottom 4."
It reminds me a lot of what the Cardinals were prior to developing the young guys, where it was like, "Damn, Goldie and Arenado, that is really impressive." And then you look what's around, and you're
Paul
like,
DeYoung's 5th.
"Ooh."
Yadier Molina is still hitting 6th for this team.
The corpse of Yadi is batting 5th in the lineup for the Cardinals.
Albert's hitting cleanup.
Oh, I don't know about this, guys.
Let's see. They're going to get... I don't know if does San Diego have 3 or 4? Because that just depends on how things will line up.
I don't think...
Oh, you're talking about before the Cardinals series?
Because if they play 3, you're going to see only one of their top
4
3
against San Francisco.
Crap.
I don't think
You're
you win a
gonna see 2
game.
of them.
I don't think you win a game versus the Dodgers.
I think you win 1. I think they could win 1, especially if this team's distracted.
Jesus. You're going who? Michaelis? Matz?
Well, you'll beat the hell out of Yamamoto.
Thompson's starting game 2.
That's nothing.
Get the... It's not happening, guys. Come on.
It is funny. Like, I look at the Cardinals rotation and I go, God, they are trying to sell me on this is contending.
So hold
and
on.
I understand Gray's injured, but man, it is
hold
tough
on.
to look
Michaelis,
at.
Thompson, and Gibson are starting, or Matz are starting against the Dodgers.
To be fair, they've got Bobby Miller and Gavin Stone as two of the 4 starters that you're going up against. I like Bobby Miller as much as anybody. He's not an ace.
But he's still better than what we're throwing.
Gavin Stone threw all of
and the Cardinals
30
have
innings last year.
The Cardinals
and was a negative wins above replacement player.
And the Cardinals have great history against pitchers who have bad numbers at the major league level.
Stop it.
That's like when they take on left-handers that they've never seen before. It's like, this is a loss.
I'm out on this. I think they will drop 3 or 4 to the Dodgers and probably 2 or 3 against San Diego. And I think they could win 2 or 3 in San Diego. I'm not buying the whole notion of their schedule's so tough and that's what they're going to sell you on when they have a terrible first month. When
the
in reality,
problem for these teams is they got to face the Cardinals. Yeah, it's not about the Cardinals facing them. It's about them facing the Cardinals. They got to face us, dude.
Remember when remember those great
that's
hockey
not terrifying coming in.
Remember when
By the way, him saying that, reading everything from the Cardinals out of spring training has been like, was last year a blip on the rear? Yeah. You know why? Why? Because we're the Cardinals. That doesn't mean the same thing anymore.
Wait, you do remember the 2.5-minute open you put together of all of your bad Blues takes, right? You're just going to sit here and back this Cardinals optimism?
Know how this works, man. The calendar flips to the Cardinals season, and suddenly I'm BK optimism.
Even
and
the
Alex.
advanced analytics tell you this team is going to suck.
I mean, suck is strong. They tell you that it could be.
They're going to be the 3rd best team in the NL Central.
And win 78 games.
Well,
and Mo's going to be like, well, it's par for the course.
It's like 84 is where most of the projections are.
Yeah,
Dude, the
I'll go with Jim
projections are
Bowden.
basically like, hey, listen, it's the Dodgers and it's the Braves, and then good luck. The rest of the NL West, they're like, 84 wins for you, and you, and you, and you.
Remember Ben
The
Hockman's
NL West
piece
is
on
going to
the...
be an awesome division, by the way.
Remember Ben Hockman's piece on the Blues in the Post where he was like, man, this team's bad. Don't get too excited.
Another one today where he's like, yeah, cool, you won a few games. Show me something against Vegas. and I'll buy into
Welcome
it.
to how I feel about the Cardinals. And I know, Alex is so negative again about the Cardinals.
Guys, I watched Lance Lynn get beat around by the Astros B team.
Has Matz made it past the 2nd inning in a spring training game?
Well, let's talk about a couple of those things. We're going to play a game.
Paul Goldschmidt still can't hit.
We're going to play a game of something or nothing. One of the first ones is what Alex just mentioned. Paul Goldschmidt so far has 14 strikeouts and 34 at-bats this spring training. He's batting 147, and he has a total of 1 home run and 2 doubles. Something or nothing. Paul Goldschmidt's struggles from last season have continued into the spring. We'll talk about it next. Alongside Alex Ferrario, I'm Brandon Kiley. Whenever you're walking through your neighborhood, I know you do it. We all do it, right? You're walking around, you're looking around, and you're saying to yourself, my yard's better than that one, and that one, and that one, and that one. And when you have Green Envy Lawn Care taking care of your yard will be the envy of the neighborhood. Alex and I have been with Green Envy for a number of years at this point. They help us out throughout the summer, and they do so into the fall as well. They came out, they aerated my grass for me, they put the seed down in the fall, and I'm seeing the fruits of their labor right now. Alex, whenever I go outside, it doesn't take the same amount of time anymore for me to take care of the yard, which is important now that I've got a family at home.
Yeah, look, when I've got weeds in the backyard, when I've got crabgrass in the backyard, I know that Green Envy is there to take care of it. And here's the thing. The soil that they use is formulated for Missouri. The weather conditions, the turf types, when it's so hot and so cold, Green Envy's product is making sure that it can stand all season long. They've got professionals out there that are licensed by the Department of Missouri of Agriculture. Check them out. Give them a call today, 636-757-1600. Mention Alex, Ferrario, and BK sent you. That's 636-757-1600.
Tara Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Blues back in action tonight as they take on the Vegas Golden Knights. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 6 o'clock with Alex Ferrario and Joey Vitale. Then Joey will join Chris Kerber for Puck Drop at 7. And the Cardinals are in Arizona where they wrap up their spring training slate. So they've got a game today and tomorrow. Today's game will be 3:05 first pitch, and Steven Matz will get the start for the St. Louis Cardinals. The Sports Update driven by Johnny Londoff. Find your road shop 24/7 at londoff.com, londoffAutoplex.com. Are you kidding me?
You guys know my general philosophy on spring training is that none of it matters until it does. And when you get to the end, you can kind of look back on everything and say to yourself, all right, Nolan Gorman looking better at second base defensively last year. That was meaningful. You see some of the changes at the plate for guys. Okay, there's a different approach here. Guys are able to, increase their velocity pitching-wise. Maybe they don't have any command of their stuff early in the season. That's meaningful. But generally speaking, I don't really care a lot about the results that you see during spring training. Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, it's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. That being said, when there are outliers and you have a guy that is striking out 50% of the time, or you've got a pitcher that just looks amazing, it's worth at least acknowledging that those things are taking place. So let's play a game of something or nothing for Cardinals spring training, Alex.
We need some music.
All right, let's start out with the obvious. There's starting to become a little chatter about Paul Goldschmidt and the struggles that we've seen from him in spring. It's been the worst spring of his major league career thus far. He hit 116 during spring in Florida with 19 strikeouts in his 43 at-bats. That's generally not what you see from Paul Goldschmidt. That means his timing is off, along with, obviously, the exit velos and everything else being a little bit down. Alex, something or nothing, Paul Goldschmidt struggles in spring training.
Man, I'd love to say nothing because he's a veteran and I fully expect him to figure it out by the start of the season. But, man, I'm totally saying this is something. For the way that his year ended last year and how we were like, yeah, something's off with Goldie. The timing's not right. And then you get the offseason where the Cardinals were like, man, you know what? We don't want an extension. We want to see how the season plays out. And then you get this. Man, as BK likes to say, read their actions, not their words. I'm starting to wonder if Paul Goldschmidt is in a bad spot that's going to take him a couple of months to dig his way out of.
I'm going to say it's something, and the reason I'm concerned is the way last season went. Now, look, I know all his look under the hood numbers looked solid last year, but, man, last year was the lowest slugging percentage of his career, and now he's in spring training, and he's not hitting the ball, and he's the one that is kind of sounding the red alarm bells. If he was saying the things of, like, I'm working on things, I think everything seems to be going. Things are right, he sounds like he's lost, and that's a little worrisome for me. This reminds me more of the Adam Wainwright situation, to where it was the year prior, the numbers look good, but you saw in the final month it was, man, something's not right. He comes into spring training, he's not throwing the ball even harder, he's losing some of the miles per hour on his sinker, and next thing you know, he has a 7 ERA and barely gets through a season with the 200 wins. I'm starting to wonder if we're really seeing the downfall of Paul Goldschmidt. I don't think it's going to be as bad as like Wainwright's year was, but I am a little worried. I'm going to say this is something.
So somebody on the text line said, guys, Paul Goldschmidt always starts slow. Not actually true.
No, he does not.
Last year, he actually started out really hot. He was on fire while Nolan Arenado was struggling.
His first year here, he started off red hot.
So the last two seasons, so 21, 22, yes, he did start slow. But here are some of the other OPS numbers by Goldie in the first month of the season. 900, 983, 931, 1,000, 900, 895, and then it was the first year of his major league career. Goldie typically gets off to a good start. Even if it's not up to his standards, it's really, really good early on in the season. Last year, he was great, and right now you're looking at a potential outlier season that could resemble what he did in 2021 when he had a 600 OPS in the first month of the regular season. And this is, to Tanner's point, something that was potentially a continuation of post-June 1st of last year. From after June 1st until the final game of the regular season when he did hit 2 doubles, he had an OPS that was about 730, and that was because his slugging percentage was below 400. He just stopped hitting doubles. His home run numbers were still there. He was on like a 25 home run pace in the second half of the season, essentially. But he hit 11 doubles in a 97-game stretch. That is not Paul Goldschmidt. And he also struck out 108 times in less than 400 at-bats. So he's striking out like 28% of the time. Again, not very Paul Goldschmidt-esque. The timing was off. We know he went into the offseason. He was like, I got to get this fixed. I've got to get my timing back. I've got to figure something out at the plate. It does not appear that has clicked for him just yet. I do fear, because we've seen this before as well, where it takes him a while to be able to get things back on track with his bat. He does eventually, but it takes a while. I fear that early in the regular season, when you're trying to get this rotation going, when you're trying to overcome all of the injuries, this is going to be something that is a serious problem for them. So for me, it is something.
And here's the other thing, too. Like, even if if people believe he starts off slow in the beginning of the season, he doesn't play slow in the spring. Like, he's always locked in the spring. This is the second most at-bats that he has had through spring training since he's been a Cardinal, which to me tells me something. They realize, he's clearly working through something. They realize something's off, and they're like, we need you in as many games as possible.
All right, let's go through another few of these really quickly. Something or nothing. Matt Carpenter's batting .348 with 5 extra base hits and 23 at-bats so far this spring.
Nothing. He's not even walking. I think he's walked 3 times. He's just mashing right now. I am not buying into this. The Cardinals, on the other hand, are going to say he's our opening day DH.
It'd be amazing.
See, I actually would say this is something. considering how bad his bat was last year and how we saw his bat play the last time he was a St. Louis Cardinal in spring training, where he was like 1 for 34, and Mike Schilt was like, gosh darn, those are good at bats. And I was just like, that's alarming. I would say this is something. I think maybe there's something there. I'm not saying he's going to have what he had that year with the Yankees in 2022, but I think this is something. I think his bat speed is back a little bit to where he's going to be at least be serviceable as a DH.
That's all you need. Just give me a month. If you give me a month of really good at-bats, I'm fine. And that's the value that you need out of Matt Carpenter. And if that comes early on in the season, even better. Something or nothing. Lance Lynn has a 7.9 ERA in 13 innings. Kyle Gibson has a 10.8 ERA in 10 innings. And Steven Matz has a 9 ERA in 10 innings so far this spring.
How does T-Bone do it? Of course it's something! These guys are struggling! Every time they step on the mound, they're getting smacked around. I'll ask the question again. Has Steven Matz made it out of the second inning in spring training games yet?
I'd have to look it up.
I don't think he has. I think it's been one and done.
The problem is these things can be a little fluky as well, because they do the thing where, like, if you don't get out of the inning,
yeah, we'll take you out. We'll put you back in later. Here's the thing. And
his starts so far this spring, Alex: 1 inning, 0 earned runs; 2 innings, 4 earned runs; 3 innings, 3 earned runs; 4 innings, 3 earned runs.
Oh, good. So it gets worse the further he goes. That's really
makes sense.
This is the part that I've said before, and I say again. I know everyone's like, "Man, they're working on stuff." Lance Lynn, Kyle Gibson are not working on anything. They know who they are, what they have to do to be ready, and what pitches they have. They're not working on new pitches. Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson, who, by the way, 7.9 ERA, 10.8 ERA. Yes, los problemas.
Yeah, this is something. And,
for Polo.
And look, they will sometimes throw pitches that they don't throw in a regular season at bat. Like I know Gibson talked about, I went to another cutter again in one at bat against the Astros when he got rocked his last appearance. Look, I get that. Man, watching them pitch, they do not look good. Lance Lynn looked terrible yesterday again, by the way. Like, this is what the Cardinals signed up for, and it's why the previous segment I just said I do not think they are a playoff team. So I think this is something. I think this rotation is going to be bad.
It's fine.
It's fine.
You don't even believe
literally
that.
What you just read through are the 3 guys that are going to be starting the first 5 games of the season for you.
And they'll be fine.
And the Cardinals
Steven
are going
Matz does not have a feel for his changeup again, which was an issue last season.
He'll be a bullpen arm by April.
Exactly.
And then by May, they'll be like, oh, he's back. And then he's hurt in June. And then July, he returns, and he's good for a month.
He'll go to the bullpen after the first round of the rotation. I actually do believe that. I think he's going to be the one that ends up getting replaced, not Zach Thompson. I think Thompson has just flat out, he's earned that opportunity.
My concern with Thompson is the fact that I know the Cardinals are like, man, he is battling. Look at how he's getting through these without his fastball.
Great.
And then I look and his fastball's like 88. That was like a Wainwright fastball. What are you talking about?
It worked for Waino.
It's like 91. It'll be fine.
It worked for Waino.
It will not be fine.
I don't think this is anything worth monitoring
Of course not.
Now, after the first round of the rotation, when they all get absolutely obliterated, I'll be sounding the alarm.
Because the Dodgers
today.
Because the Dodgers and Padres don't have any bats, BK.
Hopefully Otani's too distracted.
There's a lot of
bad way.
left-handers, which is probably not great for Gibson and Lynn, but it'll be fine. Everything's going to be fine. Lynn's going to start opening day here in St. Louis, and that's going to be great.
Good thing we got that great defense behind those guys to be able to get through the games.
I'm super excited. I can't wait for Lynn to go up against his former teammates. He's going to be highly motivated. Everything's going to go well. It'll be fine.
I love your optimism, man. You're just like me, a young Alex Ferrario at the beginning of the 2023-2024 Blues season, where I said, this team has got better talent than what we're giving it credit for.
All right, last one. Finish on a high note.
And then 2 months later, Berube was fired.
And I'm not talking about the ERAs for the starting rotation. Andre Palante, 11 strikeouts in his 10 innings so far this spring. Something or nothing. A guy that, generally speaking, has not had strikeout stuff. Something or nothing that he's showing it so far in the spring.
I think this is something, and I like the stuff of what I've seen with Andre Palante, and the thing that's impressed me is it's not just against one side of the bat like it was last year. Like, what was it? It was lefties that he could get out, and righties were the problem. We were like, cool, so he's just a left-handed pitcher for you. He's doing it on both sides. I like the strikeout stuff with Palante. Something's clicked for him, and I'm excited to see him at the major leagues once they start the season.
Yeah, I think this is something as well. In fact, I think he's probably going to send Fernandez back to Boston.
Oh, wow.
I think that they may not carry the Rule 5 pick. I mean, his stuff hasn't been as electric
I don't blame him. He hasn't been good.
Andre Palante. And look, it was a no-sweat bet when you did it in spring or at the Rule 5 draft. And I don't think it's the worst thing in the world to send him back. I think they're going to carry Palante. I think he's making the roster, and now that he's got the death ball, I think it's something.
Do you think they're going to keep John King? Because you get 2 of Andre Palante, Ryan Fernandez, or John King, until they end up getting Middleton back, and then they have to make their
How many
decision
lefties
again.
you got in the bullpen minus?
Yeah, that's why I don't think they're keeping King.
I think they were. They only got JoJo Romero as a lefty in the bullpen, right?
Depending on how they want
They're
to
going to
use
do
Liberatore.
Liberatore in the bullpen as well.
Okay,
and then you've got Palante, who can effectively work against lefties. I think Fernandez is making the opening day roster, and then you'll have to make a call
I
on
think
him.
King makes it because they have to have backup for Liberatore when he blows up.
I think Liberatore is going to be fine in the bullpen. Yeah. I think this is something, though. I think this is something worth monitoring early in the season. He did a lot of changes with his arsenal in the offseason. Velocity's up a bit for him. It's up a tick. It seems like the movement on the fastball is a little better this time around. He's got that death ball that he's been working on. I think this is something. I'm really curious to watch Andre Palante early in the season. I don't think he's a high leverage reliever for you, but if he's a little better than he was a year ago, can help you in the middle innings. So I think this is worth monitoring on a positive side of things.
All right, way to go, Cards. We got one.
Coming up next,
really good.
We're going to dive into the junk drawer. Katie Woo at 1 o'clock here on 101 ESPN. All right, let's dive into the junk drawer. Katie Woo, Cardinals insider for The Athletic, joining us in less than 10 minutes. T-Bone, what do you got for us today?
Guys, I was walking to my car this morning to come into the office for our pre-show meeting, and as I'm walking to my car, first off, it made me feel like white trash, but as I'm walking to my car, I hear
walking
this.
to your car?
No, what I saw happen. As I'm walking to my car, I hear this like scraping sound coming down the road.
Oh, nice.
And I'm going, what on earth is
Car dragging
that?
its tail end?
No, that wouldn't make me
Dragging
feel like
something
white
underneath
trash.
it?
What it was an old beat up car, but it wasn't the car making the sound. It was the couch that was attached to it with a rope that was being dragged behind it, going.
Yeah.
And I went, just watched
Hey,
it
man.
go. And watched it go around. No idea where this couch went. Because I
trash.
thought
That's what they were doing. They were pulling it to put it off the
That's what's
trash.
odd, okay?
Going to somebody's living room.
When I leave my apartment, when I'm walking to my car, there is a dumpster literally right over here to the right.
Sure.
He went by the dumpster. Did not stop. That's what I thought he was doing. I was like, oh, okay, he's probably just like taking this. And then as I watched, he didn't stop. He just went right by the dumpster and kept on driving.
Hey, man.
I have no idea where this couch ended up going.
He's trying to literally go couch surfing.
It would have been
That'd
Somebody
be
on the
amazing.
back
If you saw
end,
somebody, they were just
sitting
like
on
doing,
it?
you know, the Dune, no spoilers here, Dune, where they're like riding on the worms. If you just saw that in
do,
your
man?
front yard.
Dude, it was the
hardest-
strangest thing to see when I'm
Easier.
coming in the office. You
Maybe
know,
he wasn't having to go very far, and he's like, I'm not going to drop hundreds of dollars for a U-Haul. I have nobody to help me put this on top of my vehicle. Nobody I know has a truck. What do? Get a rope, tie it to
Let's
that
just
couch,
say-
and let's bring it home.
when I heard that sound coming down the road, I genuinely thought it was someone's back end that was kind of hitting the ground or a tailpipe hitting the ground. And then as it went by, and then out of the corner of my eye, I saw something. I was like, "What is that?" And I look over, and it's this three part couch. Green couch that is going by. I was like, what the hell did I just
And it
witness?
was
Am I
raining this morning
dreaming?
as well, just to add
Yeah.
a
That's
little
even
bit
better.
to the
That's even
context.
better. They're lighter when they get wet, I've heard.
All right, we'll get to Katie Woo here on the other side in just a moment. Before we get there, a little bit of news to pass along. Shohei Ohtani, according to Alden Gonzalez of ESPN.com, will not be taking questions from the media when he addresses them later on this afternoon. Instead, he will read a statement that is coming up at 2:45 Pacific, so 4:45 local time here. So about 3.5 hours from now, Shohei Ohtani will be addressing the media. Alex, what would you guess if you had to guess what he's going to say? Because it's going to be a statement, not any questions.
I'm very sorry that this has happened to the Dodgers. This does not look good. I don't have any answers, or I don't have anything that I can speak about, but I can let all of you know I have nothing to do with any sports gambling and have had nothing to do with any sports gambling. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's going to be something like that. I've never bet on baseball. I've never put down a bet. I did not know that my interpreter, he'll go with the story stealing the $4.5 million from me. And I don't know if he'll call him a con man or not. I hope he does, but
I think he'll say something about betrayal.
probably.
Something about feeling ashamed that he allowed this to happen.
I don't even think I think it's going to be super generic because, again, you don't want any lawsuit to pop up on you if you
I
had
think
a
what you
hand in
said
it.
is the biggest thing, Alex. He'll make sure, like, one of the first things he'll say is that I'm sorry to the Dodgers organization, I'm sorry to the fans, I'm sorry to Major League Baseball, and then he'll go into, I had nothing to do with this. I never bet on sports, I never bet on baseball, and I did not know this was happening.
I find it very poetic that Shohei Ohtani was talked about in the offseason of a guy that just wants to be left alone and have his privacy.
Oh, dude, yeah.
He signs with the Dodgers, and then this happens. Like,
I really
wanna
do
be
think this is going to
private.
have an effect on his season. I don't know how big of an effect. I think he'll still be a good player, don't get me wrong, but
I think it's good he's not pitching this year. I think if the one thing that would have really hurt him was pitching this year, the
I have
fact
to
that he's just
imagine
hitting.
We talk about joy a lot around the Blues and how they didn't have it for so long. It's going to be really hard for him to have a joyful season this year unless it ends with a parade. Like that's the only way
Or he
that he
wins
can
a big
extract
bet.
joy from. Coming up next, Katie Woo,
Nails that
Cardinals
parlay.
insider for The Athletic here on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends out at Ted Drew's off of Chippewa that is now open for its 95th season. I've been out there, I think, 3 times since they've opened up already. I went out there this past Friday with my girls. My wife was working, and so I said, well, let's go to the park and let's go to Ted Drew's. And we did it. Just a whole St. Louis tradition day, and we love everything about it. And why I do is because I continue those traditions that I used to do with my family. And I'm sure there's been tons of you listening that have been doing this with your family. 95 years and 4 generations of families have been serving St. Louisans that famous frozen custard. You've got the legendary quality that is that frozen custard. It's family owned and operated, and it's perfect any time of the day. While you're out there, walk across the parking lot and check out their gift shop. You can shop for Ted Drew's clothes. You can shop for Ted Drew's hats, drinkware, gift cards, which, believe me, Ted Drew's gift cards are the perfect gift when you're like, what do I buy this person? Gift cards for Ted Drew's. Everybody loves frozen custard. So get on out there tonight, this weekend, and enjoy some family time with Ted Drew's famous frozen custard off of Chippewa. Ted Drew's. It really is good guys and gals.
With Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. You got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. It is officially game week for the St. Louis Cardinals. Katie Woo joining us live right now. She joins us via the 101 ESPN hotline. You can read all of her fantastic work over at The Athletic. You can follow her on Twitter at KatieJWoo. And if I understand this correctly, after listening to the podcast last week, sounds like you'll be able to hear her this week occasionally on the MLB show with the Roundtable guys. So, Katie, congratulations on that opportunity. How you doing today?
I am good, guys. How are you? Happy game week. That is right.
More importantly, Katie, how are you? Because I've already seen the back and forth on social media, and I would say Cardinals fans are fully prepared for the upcoming season.
Oh, are they already getting after it?
Oh, yeah. Katie's already going back and forth.
Okay, I would like to preface this with the Cardinals have not played an actual game that has mattered yet, so let's put that out there. And I will no longer be addressing any questions about Matt Carpenter's playing time until those games take place.
True or false, Katie? Matt Carpenter will be your opening day DH.
True.
I would go definitely the home opener, true, and I could see him doing that. I'm 50-50 on Carpenter or Burleson, but my gut tells me Carpenter, my mind tells me Burleson.
Against Tyler Glass now?
She just told you she's not fielding any questions about it.
Katie, I have a complaint about Mark's playing time.
No, hold on. They're not doing that against Glass now, right?
My mind's telling me no, but the Cardinals are telling you yes.
We'll get off of that for a second. Okay, the big thing that people are upset about today, Katie, sounds like they're going to get Dylan Carlson in center field. Victor Scott sent down to the minors over the weekend. Can you explain from the Cardinals' perspective, not your opinion, I will ask that, but from the Cardinals' perspective, why did they make this decision?
I think it's a very Cardinals decision. I don't say that with a negative connotation. I think when you look at the way the roster's set up, we know Tommy Edmonds starting the year on the injured list, same with Lars Nootbaar, but the Cardinals believe that Lars Nootbaar's rib injury will not keep him out for super long. They're waiting further clarity on Tommy Edmonds, so they know they're going to be down at least one for a semi-significant time period, but they remain optimistic about Lars. So bringing up Victor Scott, the Cardinals were only going to do that. Like they're pretty consistent about this with all of their top prospects. If there was a clear path to him playing every day, for the first 2 weeks there would have been. But when Lars Nootbaar comes back, it gets a little cramped, and there wouldn't be an opportunity for Victor to play every day. And we saw how an outfield logjam negatively impacted the team last April. Now it's a completely different conversation. If Dylan Carlson didn't respond to both Ollie Marmol and the coaching staff pressures of hitting this spring. And to Carlson's credit, he did. The team challenged him, the organization challenged him to go out there and win that spot, and he responded accordingly. I thought Carlson had one of the most encouraging offensive springs on the team. Not that there were many to look at, but, credit where credit's due. So with a combination of a lack of a clear, consistent path for Victor Scott and Dylan Carlson pretty much responding and putting together the offensive campaign the Cardinals were hoping to see, made this easy for the Cardinals. This is no knock on Victor Scott. I've said it before. I've said it again. He will definitely impact this team at some point this season. And if Lars has a setback, if Carlson struggles offensively, they're going to revisit that decision very, very quickly. But for right now, based on the exterior factors and everything that we just talked about, it does make sense for Victor Scott to start in AAA, even if that's arguably the more boring decision.
So, speaking of inspiring springs, Paul Goldschmidt has not had one, Katie. What's your concern level for Goldschmidt's offense through spring training?
Yeah, Goldschmidt, definitely, Arenado to an extent, Gorman to an extent. Just not awesome. A good spring from anyone, really. But I'm firmly in the camp that spring training stats do not matter. What does matter are guys having their feel at the plate. Are they getting their timing down? Are they seeing pitches? I don't necessarily think Paul Goldschmidt is seeing the high fastball as much as he'd want to at this point in the spring with two exhibition games remaining. But I'm going to withhold any concern for an offense I've been high on all offseason. I know you guys have been too, until we see some actual games. Now, they're going to get quite the test with the Dodgers and the Padres right off the bat, so we'll see. Was I expecting some more power, some more home runs from this team in general this spring? Yes, but I'll stick to my gut and saying spring training stats are simply that. Let's give them a week against two pretty top-tier pitching staffs, and then we can overreact accordingly.
I don't think everything has been negative about the Cardinals, but we're skewing that way, unfortunately, today, because we also have to ask you about the rotation and three guys in particular that have struggled so far during the spring that the Cardinals are tying their wagons to. We're talking to Katie Woo of The Athletic here on BK and Ferrario. Lance Lynn, Katie, has an ERA of basically 8 through 13 innings. Kyle Gibson, an ERA of 10 in 10 innings. Steven Matz, an ERA of 9 in 10 innings. That's an unbelievable small sample size for all three of those players, but it hasn't been pretty. But when they've been on the mound, what has been your impression of what you've seen from those three specifically?
Yeah, this rotation as a whole, I think we'll be talking about a lot in April. But let's stick to these three. For me, look, all three of these guys have been in the game a very long time. They know what they need to get out of spring. If they're not super concerned about the stats, which obviously they want to go out there and get guys out, but if they're more focused on finding their pitches, executing, getting their sequencing right, all power to them. Who am I to tell three veterans who've been in the game for as long as they have how to work their spring? I will say, if all three of these pitchers, Kyle Gibson, Lance Lynn, and Steven Matz, want to be successful, they're going to have to be a lot more efficient than how they were in the spring, because you're seeing some high pitch counts early. I mean, you're seeing some really long first innings. You're seeing a lot of the same problems in spring that we saw from this team last April and May, and we don't need to go into how that went out. We all remember, as much as most of us would like to forget. So that's what I'm looking for in this first turn, or two first turns throughout the rotation, is can these guys be efficient? Zach Thompson, I thought, was relatively efficient throughout the spring. Miles Michaelis, I don't think we have too much to worry about there. But if Kyle Gibson, Lance Lynn, and Steven Matz want to be successful, they got to be efficient. They got to get those first, second innings down quickly. The last thing you want to do is find yourself in a hole early with pitch counts. We've seen that trickle-down effect where it gets to the bullpen, which I actually think will be an underrated good aspect of this roster. Just depends if their rotation can get them there. And guys, like we questioned in November before we knew what the rotation looked like, we still don't know if that rotation can do that.
So, Katie, since this is opening week and this will be the last time we talk to you before they start actual games, we talked about this last week in terms of the impact of the first couple of weeks of the season. And I know some people are making it out to be a gauntlet, but because the first month of the season last year, you were 9 games below 500, I feel like there's not a lot of wiggle room in terms of struggles in the early portion of this season. Am I wrong?
I would tend to agree with you. I asked John Mozeliak this last week if he felt there was external pressure to go out and win early, especially considering how last April went. And he didn't. He seemed to push back a little bit. And I think he might have maybe taken exception to the question, because his essential answer was how this team starts is not going to dictate how they make their decisions. So do with that what you will. I'm under the impression, and I'm under the belief, that if the Cardinals get off to a terrible April, and by terrible, I mean an April that mirrors last April. If they play 500 ball this April, I'm okay with that. I think that's pretty consistent, pretty good, given who they're missing to start the year and their strength of schedule. But if they are 9-10 games under 500 in April, I think that would be a huge, huge deal. And maybe it would warrant some other decisions to be made. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. You know, there's still a lot of baseball to be played in the month of April. We'll see how this Cardinals team turns out. Obviously not ideal to be without Sonny Gray for the first 2 weeks. Tommy Edman, not ideal there either. Lars Nootbaar, also not ideal. Keaton Middleton. You see where I'm getting at.
Keep going.
But, you know, I believe that, you know, it's opening day. Everyone should be positive. But I'm not going to turn away and ignore the blatant concerns that are about this roster early on. But the best way to deal with concerns if you're the Cardinals is to win, and those magically go away, you guys.
I'll say this, Katie, like for somebody who can't let last season happen again, they sure don't act like they're worried about last season repeating itself if it does.
Yeah, it's a very here's my initial concern about the Cardinals. And I thought, BK, I think we discussed this too. The biggest thing that plagued the Cardinals in 2023, the two biggest concerns about their roster, were lack of starting pitching and uncertainty about outfield defense. And I think the two biggest questions right now, as we enter the 2024 season, those involve, questions about the rotation and questions about outfield defense. So do with that what you will. But yeah, for fans that are apprehensive or uneasy about the start of the season, I can understand why. But it's a new year, new team. I have seen a dramatic difference in the clubhouse in terms of those veterans guys that came in, Carpenter, Crawford. Lynn and Gibson have been great additions as well. I have the Sonny Ben, so we'll see how it starts. But I certainly do understand, again, the apprehension from the fan base to start the year.
Man, it's going to be so cool when this team wins each of their 7 games on the road in L.A. and San Diego. God, the amount of crow that these guys are going to be.
The amount of wishful thinking that you live with. You live in a Disney world, don't you?
It's really great. It's spectacular. You should try it sometime. All right, Katie, final question that I've got for you. Let's go a little bit more on the positive side of things, because that's kind of how we balance things out. Who's your breakout candidate for this season? And you can take it in any direction, but based on what you've seen so far throughout the spring, your player that you believe will have a breakout campaign in 2024 is?
Oh, I like this question. I'm between two guys, but I'm going to go Brendan Donovan.
In what capacity? Because he's already a good player. So what do you see as the breakout?
There's BK with the backhanded compliment.
I like it. I love Brendan Donovan.
And that's what I was in between about. But for Brendan Donovan, I think the Cardinals know how valuable he is to the organization. And definitely now that they're down 2 outfielders to start the year. But I'm not sure if baseball knows how valuable Brendan Donovan is. And again, teams value different players differently. I'm not sure what the value for Donovan would be if he was in a team where he didn't have to play literally every position. But because he is, and because he's taken in this leadership role at such a young age, I just think that baseball will get a chance to see how important Donovan is. I think we're going to see him take a step forward offensively. He does all the little things right in terms of base running. His routes in the outfield have definitely improved. I just think Brendan Donovan, I think, exemplifies Cardinal baseball. And at a time where the Cardinals are going to be under a pretty significant microscope to start the year, my belief, or at least my hope for Donovan is that he can show how valuable he is to this team, and that kind of translates over to how baseball kind of respects him. But I can see him being a name that more and more people, more and more fans from outside teams know by the middle of the year.
Well, Katie, you're incredibly valuable to the show. We appreciate you joining us as you do each and every week throughout the Cardinals season. Looking forward to watching this team actually take the field this weekend. It'll be nice to talk about real baseball for the first time in a long time. We'll talk with you again next week to break it all down. Thanks as always, Katie. Enjoy LA.
You got it, guys. See you soon.
You got it. That's Katie Woo joining us, as she does each and every week throughout the Cardinals season, to break things down when it comes to your St. Louis Cardinals.
I don't know about you guys, but I am feeling some good vibrations for this season.
How you feeling, T-Bone?
I hate this Cardinals team. I really do. Them talking.
What if they're good?
They're not, okay?
Stop trying to convince yourself that they're going to be good.
Here's my biggest issue with the Cardinals. I've screamed from the mountaintops about their starting rotation and how they desperately need a number 2. As you see by Miles Michaelis being your opening day starter. When you look across the league, that's one of those where one of these things doesn't look like the other. Yeah. My biggest issue is I feel like, Alex, you asked Katie the question, and she brought up how, like, they're not showing urgency of – I feel like they're lying. You know, I feel like they're saying all the right things of, you know, we can't have last year's first month happen. Man, we've really got to improve upon last year's start. Last year, the first month doomed us. And then I see this outfield crumbling with injuries. Nootbaar's not drinking enough milk and breaks his ribs. Edmonds' wrist isn't recovering.
Hey, Gorman got rid of the popcorn, though.
And they still don't carry Victor Scott to improve the defense. The pitching is still clearly a massive issue looking at the way spring training has gone. And they're telling you it's fine. It is fine. Guys, if they struggle in the first month, I do not expect Mo to make a move because he's never shown urgency in the past.
He's told you he's not going to.
Even though he said
it's
that.
an early season.
And I don't buy the notion that the schedule is as daunting as people are laying it out to be. I think they have a 9 games under 500 start to the first month. You can write them off as dead. The first month can sink this St. Louis Cardinals team like it did last year. And I didn't want to write off last year's team. This year I've learned they struggle in the first month. You can write them off as dead, and you may not have to watch baseball for the rest of the summer.
If they struggle, Mo is going to open up and be like, it's a long season, and we can't be worried about the first month.
So I promise you I'm not giving them an out here, but I do think it's worth acknowledging for context. It is really hard to hit at Roger Dean Stadium. Like, we know this to be true, right? And so some of the offensive numbers I would expect to be tamped down based upon that. Like, I'm not surprised that there's a lot of guys that try to hit for power that struggle when they're down there specifically.
But the concern isn't the offense through spring training.
I know, but I'm getting there. The reason why I will then set that aside is because, okay, maybe there's reasons for the struggles of Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt and some of the other guys, Brendan Donovan, some of the other guys that rely on batted balls to be able to have success at the plate. That doesn't explain the pitching. Because if I'm going to give them the out for the offense of the place that you play is hard for offense to succeed, the same thing should also be true for your starters who have struggled. And so I would have to go through and see, okay, where did all of those take place? Were these guys starting mostly on the road? That would help to explain it a little bit. But the context doesn't exactly work out when I'm saying, okay, the offense is explained for their lack of numbers by their ballpark, but then there's these bloated ERAs for their starters. Well, shouldn't that also have an opposite effect of, like, the correlation there would be your pitching is looking better because the opposing offenses are also having to participate at your home park.
All 3 of Kyle Gibson's starts in spring training have been at Roger Dean Stadium.
It's not great.
And I just looked this up. And look, these numbers can change because, you know, when you start spring training, you have like 10 starting games. They have the 6th worst starters ERA in all of baseball in spring training.
Overall?
Overall. Not, but again, half their games are played at Roger Dean. And to your point, Gibson's were all at Roger Dean Stadium.
Lynn's had one at Roger Dean,
he's
3
been
on the road.
A lot. But the fact that overall the starting rotation is 6th worst in Major League Baseball in terms of ERA. Now, there are some decent rotations that are near this list, I may add. The Diamondbacks and Giants are right there with them. But there's also the Royals, Brewers, and Reds.
My thing with Goldie, right? Like, I'm not... Maybe it's like a Donovan. Donovan has not had a good spring so far. I'm not worried about that because I know Brendan Donovan's a good baseball player, and he'll figure it out eventually at the plate. And the Astros, their rotation's got guys that like they're going to be pretty good for the most part this season. If the Braves or the Dodgers or the Phillies, their guys were struggling this spring, I'll write it off. I've seen it for a decade for those guys. They're good pitchers, and they'll figure it out. The problem for the Cardinals, and this is why, like somebody on the text line said, BK doesn't care about spring stats until it goes bad for him. No, I don't care about spring stats until it's a guy that needs to make the roster. Like for Dylan Carlson, the spring really mattered. Not because it's telling you that he's going to be good this season, but because if he had a bad spring, he wouldn't have been your starting center fielder on opening days. Like, it matters to win jobs. It matters for Riley O'Brien to show out in spring, to win an opportunity to show what he has during the regular season. It doesn't mean that he's going to be great when he gets that opportunity, but it allows for the opportunity. When you have guys that have struggled in the past, having that, like, okay, there's something that's different here, it looks better, that is something that even, at least for us as a fan, it makes you feel a little better. And I would imagine if you're a player and you ended last season on a downward turn and you get into the next year and then in the spring you're feeling a little better, you're seeing some of the results, that just has a trickle-down effect of feeling better going into the regular season as well, just mentally, So you'd like to have better vibes around the team, but, man, it ain't great so far. And for what it's worth, I'm looking right now at Steven Matz. He had 2 home games as well this spring, 2 innings, 4 earned runs, and 3 innings, 3 earned runs. He allowed a home run in both of those games. So, yeah, man, it's not good. It's hard to explain the struggles from your rotation.
And I understand that Matz, Gibson, and Lynn were the 3 we're talking about. I understand they are veterans, and they were locked into a roster spot. It would have been a lot better feeling that they had good springs, to your point, because of what you said. One, they would feel better because Matz, let's be honest, has been disappointing in his signing with the St. Louis Cardinals. Lynn is coming off one of the worst years in baseball, allowing the most home runs, and Kyle Gibson is a below-league average starter last year. Even though he had a decent season, he was below-league average. And the fact that all 3 are in spring training and are really struggling is very alarming.
That's the thing. If I'm going to explain the hitters struggling based on Roger Dean, I also have to – it almost makes it even worse that your starters have struggled the way that they have while also pitching at Roger Dean. You got to give one or the other. Is it, hey, the starters aren't as bad as they've looked? I don't know, man. It's not a good look so far. All right, we continue our countdown today of the 20 most important Cardinals for 2024. We come up with number 5 next. A player that's not going to begin start of the year with the St. Louis Cardinals. Tell you who that is next here on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends at Rhino Shield. I had a great day yesterday, spent outside. I cut the grass. I got the power washer out to take care of the siding of our house. And then you just sit back afterwards and you look at it and you say, man, I got a good-looking house. And that is because of Rhino Shield. The work that they did on the exterior of my home has made a complete change to the look of our house. And you might be listening right now. You might need a facelift for your home, or maybe a commercial that you are property that you're a part of, a business, a church. You need to call Rhino Shield because what Darren and his team do, they come out and they provide the quality type of fix to the exterior of your home compared to if you go get the paint off of the over-the-counter at a hardware store, it'll look good now, but then when you go through the seasons, you get all the rain, you get all the UV rays from the sun, it's going to start deteriorating and you're painting it every single year. Well, you get a 25-year transferable warranty with Rhino Shield's work that they do on the exterior of your home. It's 100% waterproof. It deflects 90% of the UV rays, so you know that you can set it and forget it with Rhino Shield's work. Give them a call today. Darren will have his team out there in a weekend and get that job done for you like they did for our home. 877-25-RHINO. That's 877-25RHINO.com.
The 20 most important Cardinals for the 2024 season.
Number 5, Lars Nootbaar.
With a high fly ball. Welcome to the game, Drew Smiley. Nootbaar has a 2-homer game. 3 pitches. And a first pitch swing to center off the bat of Correa. That carries out to the wall. Noot leaps up and makes the grab up against the wall. As this ball launched high in the air, deep right. That one's not coming back. Nootbaar halfway up the bleachers. And listen to the Cardinal fans.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK at number 5 on our countdown of the 20 most important Cardinals for the upcoming season for this team to reach its ceiling is Lars Nootbaar. Alex had him at number 5. T-Bone had him down at number 8. I had him at number 6 on my list. You average it out. For us, Lars Nootbaar as a show, the 5th most important Cardinal heading into 2024. You look at what Noot has done over the last couple of seasons offensively, right around a 785 OPS. A lot of that is carried by his on-base percentage that is higher than 350 over the past couple of seasons. But the 2 numbers that stand out the most, 108 and 117. Those are the number of games played, Alex, over the past 2 seasons. He has not been able to stay healthy. That is once again the case heading into the 2024 season. He has a rib injury. He's going to be out at least for the first 7 days of the year. Alex, why did you have Lars Nootbaar so high on your list of the 20 most important Cardinals?
Because when I think you look at the outfielders for this team, now I thought at the beginning of the season, now that this is going to be a little bit, but when you look at the outfielders that are Tommy Edman, Dylan Carlson, and Jordan Walker, I think Lars Nootbaar is the most important piece for that outfield because I don't know what the defense of Jordan Walker is going to look like, and frankly, I don't think the Cardinals really care what the defense looks like as long as the offense is there. You know the defense is going to be there for Tommy Edman, but 1, can he stay healthy? And 2, what does his offense provide for this team? Because Victor Scott's going to be screaming up behind him. And then when it comes down to it, who's the guy that's got the full package? The defense, the offense that can do everything for you. It's Lars Nootbaar. So for this team that has been struggling to find just one consistent damn outfielder for the last 5-6 seasons, Lars Nootbaar could be the first one for them. And if he is, man, does that change this team's outlook.
Yeah, and the reason I had him lower on my list compared to you guys was I just don't know where he's hitting in the lineup. Like, I understand what you were saying, and you're 100% right. Like, he does have the full package. I don't know where you hit him in the lineup because I think Donovan's the better leadoff hitter. I think Gorman is more of the 3-hole hitter. And then am I hitting
6th.
him all the way 6th?
Yep.
Like, then it just lowers his importance for me. And I think I still like Lars Nootbaar as a player. I'm bought in on him. Like, unlike last year going into the season, I wasn't. I just didn't know where he was going to hit, so it lowered down where I thought he was going to be on my list.
Yeah, I think he's a guy that has the potential to hit 20 or 25 home runs this year. I think he has the potential to get on base 36% of the time. I think he has the potential to play plus defense in left field. And when you add all that up, man, that is an unbelievably valuable player to what you're trying to do as a team. He helps you lengthen that lineup like we've been talking about. Man, if you're a team that has a player like Lars Nootbaar batting 6th in your lineup and then Jordan Walker batting 7th, that is one hell of an order. But it requires him to stay healthy, and once again, that is a problem for him heading into the season. Hopefully it gets figured out sooner rather than later, but Lars Nootbaar, this team can't reach its ceiling this year if he is not a big part of it. Number 5 on our countdown of the 20 most important players for 2024. We'll continue tomorrow with a pitcher on the list at number 4.
Who could that
For
be?
Alex and T-Bone on BK. You got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. But we get back to the Blues coming up next. Dave Goucher is the Goucher is the play-by-play broadcaster for the Vegas Golden Knights. A legitimate must-win team, not just for the Blues, but for Vegas as well heading into tonight. We'll talk to Dave Goucher about that coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
Tara Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Blues back in action tonight as they take on the Vegas Golden Knights, and we'll have pregame coverage starting at 6 o'clock with Alex Ferrario and Joey Vitale. Then Joey will join Chris Kerber for puck drop at 7. And the Cardinals back in spring training action today as they are in Arizona taking on the Chicago Cubs. First pitch will be 3:05, and Steven Matz will be on the mound for St. Louis. The Sports Update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
Alongside Brandon Kiley and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Alex Ferrario. We're back on BK and Ferrario here on your home for the Blues 101 ESPN. Big game tonight for St. Louis as they take on the Golden Knights. 4 points separating these two teams for that bottom wild card spot. So to get the perspective on the other side, we welcome in the play-by-play man for the Vegas Golden Knights. He is Dave Goucher. Dave, thank you so much for taking some time out of a busy schedule and hopping on with us. Give us a little view from the other side tonight. How big is this for Vegas, just like it is for St. Louis?
Yeah, great to be with you guys. It's a huge game for the Golden Knights. I mean, you can make an argument this is the biggest game they've played in this regular season. They've taken a turn for the better here lately, guys, winning 5 of their last 7 after, really struggling for, a good chunk of February and even earlier in March. And I think the standings kind of tell it all, right? If you look at it, where they're at right now with a 4-point cushion on the Blues for that wild card spot, and also just 2 points behind LA in the Pacific Division. So, it's as big a game as they have played this regular season. It's a huge trip for them. Obviously, the Blues tonight, Nashville tomorrow, then Winnipeg, and you've got Minnesota at the end of the trip trying to make a late season push. So I think the Golden Knights have been encouraged by their play lately. Just finished up a 3-1 homestand and looking to carry that play into this road trip.
Dave, I know that injuries are certainly a big part of this, but it's surprising to me that we're having a conversation on March 25th, and the conversation includes the Blues potentially being able to take a playoff spot still from the Vegas Golden Knights. I didn't foresee that this season. What's led to the Vegas Golden Knights' inconsistencies in your mind?
Yeah, it's funny. I'm surprised too. It's Dave. They had a great start. They were 25-5 through 30 games, first in the league. And then, the injuries have been a significant part of it. They've been without Mark Stone here for about a month. Injured. Jay Theodore missed 3 months. Both their goaltenders have been hurt this year. Alex Pietrangelo, not with the team right now. They're hoping that he'll be able to join them at some point on this road trip. So, Jack Eichel missed significant time. You can go right on that. This is the 3rd year in a row they've been hammered with injuries. Put that part of it aside, which it is part of the equation for them. I think it's been at times their team defense and lack of timely saves that has cost them. I also think at times they haven't had the necessary juice or emotion in their game that, when they do play with it, and we saw this, on full display when they won the Stanley Cup back in June, they can be, one of the best teams in the league. So they had a bit of a delayed Stanley Cup hangover, honestly, guys. And I said they had the great start. I don't really think it kicked in for them, until maybe, January, February. You hit the dog days of the season, and they had a lot of regulation losses, those losses where you just get nothing out of it. So they have come, obviously, way back to the pack from being first in the league through the first little over a third of the season to putting themselves in a spot here where they could very likely be in the final dozen games, a fight to the finish to get into the playoffs. But, the good part is still in their own hands, obviously. I mean, I think they're looking at it, a win tonight in regulation, that cushions back up to 6 with down to what? They'll have 11 games left after tonight.
So, Dave, I understand why Vegas has been so good at home this season. I mean, I've seen that environment firsthand, and I know how tough that is for opponents to go play in. But what do you make of their struggles on the road this season, 15, 14, and 5?
Yeah, similar, guys. I think that, at times, they had a road trip back, it wasn't long ago. It was just actually, they went through Ottawa and then Toronto, Boston, Buffalo, Columbus. The best game so that was a 5-gamer late February into March. They beat Toronto to end the Leafs, I think, 7-game winning streak that night.
Yeah.
But then there were just other games, that on that trip, was a game in Ottawa, they had a 2-0 lead, couldn't hang on, lost in a shootout. They had a back-and-forth game in Boston where the Bruins scored a goal late to win. And then back-to-back at the end of that trip, Buffalo and Columbus, they got blown out in 2 games. So I think it's been a little bit of everything. Breakdowns defensively. Their power play has been very hit and miss again this season, probably more miss than hit. And at times, they've tried different combinations. Jack Eichel being back, I think, has helped it for sure. Shea Theodore as well. So I think, it's probably home or road guys when they struggle. It is, Bruce Cassidy would tell you taking care of the puck, too many turnovers. I think things that probably plague most teams when they're not playing winning hockey. They went through a stretch there where, what's that old saying? You either find ways to win or you find ways to lose. Mm-hmm. And there were some stretches in their game where, I'm just kind of looking at it here from February 20th to March 7th where, they had lost, what is that? A quick glance, 7 of 8, and 6 of those were in regulation. So the good news is they're starting to get a little bit healthier, although Aiden Hill's not on the trip right now. But that being said, still in a good spot. And, they've got most of these guys in that locker room, fellas, won a Stanley Cup back in June. So they do have a championship pedigree in that locker room. And I think that's something they can hopefully lean on as well.
One of the guys that was not on that championship contending team was Noah Hanifin. They trade for him at the deadline. He's somebody that we've talked about a lot here in St. Louis because the Blues had some issues on the blue line of their own, whether it was at the deadline or maybe looking at him as an offseason addition. Dave, what have you seen from his game? I know it's brief. It's only I think 8 games that he's played so far for him. But how has he fit into the mix in Vegas?
He's been excellent, guys. And we joked around on television that, he's big, rangy guy, got, an offensive flair to his game. He can skate the puck out of his own end or move it when he needs to move it out of his own end. And has been really kind of as advertised. My partner on TV, Shane Knighty, was saying the other day that he thinks he's even better than he had expected Hanifin to be. It's one thing when you see a player 3 or 4 times a year in person. It's another when you see him night after night. And he's been excellent. We started with Alex Pietrangelo as a pair, and Pietrangelo missed last. I think this is going to be 4 in a row tonight. So they put Nick Hague back in the lineup. He had sat out a game. Put Hague on his offside, a left shot D playing the right side with Hanifin. Pretty big defense pair, 2 big, rangy guys. And the question is going to be, fellas, down the road is can they keep him? He's going to be an unrestricted free agent.
We hope not. I'm sorry, Dave.
Yeah, either don't keep him, Dave, or trade Hague if you want to do that for us.
Yeah, or I'm sure the Tampa Bay Lightning would like to sign him up too.
True.
As another team that was kind of in the mix, I guess. But he's been excellent and still a young guy, right? That. At 27 years old, but, has been in the league for a long time, despite, what's this, his 9th year in the league at age 27. So, he fills a need for them. Alec Martinez had been injured recently. We mentioned Shea Theodore coming off injury. Now they have, basically 8 defensemen to the point where, they sat out Nick Hague and Zach Whitecloud. They pulled them out not long ago and put back in Ben Hutton and Alec Martinez. So good problem to have, I guess, if you're the coaching staff. But just back to Hanifin, he's been probably maybe even better than as advertised.
Dave, final one from me, and we appreciate the time like we mentioned, but from the St. Louis side, I know you don't watch all of their games, but you've seen plenty of them. What do you make of the Blues and how they're playing right now?
Well, better, right? I mean, I was just kind of jotting a couple things down before I came on, fellas. And I mean, the fact that 2 weeks ago, you guys would know this better than me, they looked dead in the water, right? I mean, they were 8 points out, and, it seems like maybe that win in Boston on that road trip kind of got them going a little bit after the 3 losses to the New York area, teams. I guess, is it going to be too little too late? I guess we'll find that out. And in talking to some people around the Blues this morning, they would say one of the biggest reasons that the team is even in the picture for the playoffs is their goaltending's been really good most of the season. So, and I know coming off kind of a back and forth game in Minnesota where, Jordan Kyrou came up big and Obviously, so did Brandon Saad and Pavel Buchnevich. So I'm a little surprised, guys. They weren't a team, and I don't know how you guys feel about it. Again, 2-3 weeks ago, I wasn't really giving much thought to either St. Louis or maybe even Minnesota even being in this picture. But to their credit, I mean, to win 6 out of 7, and you got to take care of your own business before anything else. That's something we kind of focus on with the Golden Knights. Is, hey, look, we can scoreboard watch, and we love to do it. None of it matters if you're not going to take care of your own game. So, for the Blues, they've been able to do that here over the last 6 of the last 7 anyways, and with a chance to climb a little closer tonight, perhaps.
Yeah, Alex left him for dead, but I
get the hell out of here, Dave. You know better than that. You know better than that, Dave.
I don't believe that. Like, I'm not the brightest guy on earth, believe me, but I think that's a bunch of baloney.
There we go, Dave.
They got shut out at home going into the All-Star break
Columbus
by
Blue Jackets
Columbus, who had not had a single shutout all season prior to that point. That kind of threw us off the scent. And then when they had like a must-win game at home against Nashville, and they lose that one and didn't show up, they lose 5-2.
And got shellacked by Detroit also. It felt like there were a lot of times, Dave, where I kept saying, I gotta believe, and then they laid the egg, and it's like, come on.
6 weeks later, if you had told me then that they would be in a position right now to have a must-win game against Vegas, I would have said, you're absolutely crazy. There's no chance this team will be able to get back.
There's multiple times you guys have dove off the train.
Yes,
okay.
yes. But then,
just to be clear.
But then as we do in St. Louis, Dave, we jump right back on that train when they tell us to.
Jump off with both feet, jump back on with both feet. I get it. I was in Boston for a long time. I know how it works. You don't break both ankles jumping off and jumping back on.
Amen to that. Dave, always appreciate it, my man. Looking forward to seeing you at the arena tonight. Have a great call, and thanks for hopping on with us.
All right, gents. Good to be with you. Take care.
Go. Dave Goucher, one of the best, dropping on with us tonight. I always joke with him, too. I say, try and outcompete Chris Kerber in the arena when it comes to a goal call, and he always loses.
Goucher?
Goucher always loses. You ever heard Kerbs do a goal call?
I'm familiar. I listened to many of them this morning.
I'm just making sure.
Should we play the Open again on the other side?
No, God, please, no. You're going to BKO the hell out of this team.
Should we do it? Just to celebrate a little bit?
Hell yeah. I want to listen to some Gloria Gaynor.
Let's do it.
Sorry, YouTube.
For the YouTube audience, I would recommend streaming for a little bit. Like, throw up your stream
Head
and
over
then
to the app.
Like, just pull up the app, the 101 ESPN app. It is super free. Like, unbelievably free.
But keep the YouTube stream up.
Correct.
Just watch us while you're listening to the stream.
Just give it a second, and it'll pull up. It's like 2 minutes.
T-Bone's trying to figure out how to MacGyver this segment coming up.
If you've missed anything, by the way, from today's show, you missed any of our conversation with Dave Goucher or Katie Woo, check it all out on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com. The free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It's all presented by
Dobbs Tire and Auto Center.
And, of course, the YouTube stream, youtube.com/101ESPN-STL. Coming up next, we'll give you our final thoughts going into a legitimate must-win game for the Blues, and you'll hear the open of how much we really did believe in this team all along here on BK and Ferrario. Hey, it's BK. I got to tell you about my friends over at Victory Men's Health. Now is the time for you to unlock your inner champion. Did you wake up today and you just didn't feel like yourself? Maybe you're feeling a little down in the dumps. You're feeling groggy. Those all might be symptoms of low testosterone. They can test for that over at Victory Men's Health. Check them out today. VictoryMen'sHealth.com. They have 4 great locations across the St. Louis area. One in O'Fallon, Missouri, another in O'Fallon, Illinois, and then 2 others, Town and Country, Missouri, and their 4th location, the newest location, which just opened up last month in Sunset Hills, Missouri. You might have gone to one of these locations before, not at Victory Men's Health, but a place that says that they're going to help you with low testosterone. You walk through the door and you're like, man, this feels like a hospital. It feels just bright and white walls everywhere. That is not what it's like over at Victory Men's Health. This is going to be a very comfortable environment for you. And it's not just low testosterone. If you want to help with the weight loss, you want to get some help with your erectile dysfunction, they've got it all available for you. It's Victory Men's Health and VictoryMen'sHealth.com.
Long as I know how to love, I know I'll stay alive.
This is an inspired choice for a song by the St.
this
Louis
is a
Blues, by the
great
way.
choice.
Good job by them for choosing this song.
I want to know who chose it.
Find
Guess
out
what?
tonight.
God, I love you.
I need
sometimes.
you to do it.
No,
On the pregame show.
Hey, already got the investigative reporting by Grant Francis. It's coming up tonight at...
Can you confirm that you found out who did it?
we found out. Can confirm. We have found out.
This is all going to suck.
Is it a
when
good
we get killed
answer?
Tonight.
It's kind of a fun
I
one.
think it's who you expected.
Jordan Kyrou?
Did you just say Kapanen?
Kapanen did it.
What do you think? Well, he was scratched for those few games. He just was like, man, I love Gloria Gaynor.
What if that's
vibrations,
what
man.
Sammy Blay was doing while he was up in the press box? Sammy, are you paying attention?
That's
No, I'm
actually-
trying to find our hype song.
It's actually Zach Dean when he was brought up. He's
That'd
like,
be
you know what a great song is? Gloria Gaynor.
It happened right then. That was Zach Dean came up and the team started winning. I'm just
I
saying.
hope it's Zach Dean that came up with this.
He's basically the Taylor Motter of the
Oh,
St.
get
Louis
the
Blues.
hell out of here.
Good vibes, dude.
No, my guy's more talented.
All right. The Blues are back in action tonight. Alex will have pregame coverage. He will break the news exclusively right here on 101 ESPN on who came up with the song to be the mantra of their comeback this season. Alex, this is their opportunity to get everybody on board. If the Blues win tonight, every single one of you, including myself, that are skeptical of them, should be fully bought in because now is the opportunity for them to really get a playoff spot. Do you think they do it, Alex?
I do. I think they get the better goaltender in this matchup. Aiden Hill's not playing. It's Logan Thompson. I think they're missing, Vegas that is, some very important pieces. And the way that the Blues always play Vegas is if it's a close game, if it's like a one-goal game, the Blues seem to have the upper hand. These last couple of games, when it's gotten out of hand, that's when Vegas has taken advantage. And you've got Bennington in between the pipes. And now you've got a confident Jordan Kyrou. I think they pull this one out. I'll even give you a final score. 4-2, Blues victory.
I like that. I don't think they pull this one out tonight.
Son of a, I just need to throw something at you.
I think we built this whole open up. This was a great show today, guys. Man, it's going to suck tomorrow if they lose this game.
I think the Blues win it.
Absolutely will.
I believe the Blues will win tonight.
BK knocked Auburn out. Think about that for a moment.
Vegas is without their number one center. They are without their captain.
Damn it,
Or
that's a
excuse me,
great
their
point.
number one defenseman. They are without their captain. They are without their number one goalie. The Blues have everything that they could ask for heading into this one. They have the opportunity to knock Vegas down a peg, to put themselves not into the driver's seat, but in real prime position to win a playoff spot. They have the second easiest schedule down the stretch in the NHL. Blues win tonight. They win it by a final score of 3-2 in regulation. Jordan Kyrou with the game-winning goal. For Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. Fastlane coming up next.